Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, the time has come to call this meeting to order. Please join me in the pledges of allegiance.
One nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
How exciting! A whole room of people tonight. Thank you all for coming. We will applaud you. This is new this year for the Budget Committee to have so much public participation, so we are thrilled that everyone came out tonight. I just have a few opening comments before we open the floor. As the chair of this committee, I would like to remind everyone of the importance of maintaining respect and proper decorum during our meetings. Can you hear me okay? Okay, there we go. As the chair of this committee, I would like to remind everyone of the importance of maintaining respect and proper decorum during our meetings. This committee very much appreciates you taking the time to come and share your thoughts, and we value the public's input. Please keep your comments brief, focused, and respectful. Personal attacks, disrespectful language, or disruptive behavior during public comment or during the meeting itself will not be tolerated. Thank you for your cooperation, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts. I will open the floor. If you'd like to come to the microphone, please state your name and street address for the public record. In addition, Pat will be taking down names and street addresses on a piece of paper just to make it easier for her to complete the minutes after the meeting.
Hi, Sherry Curion, 5 Portside Drive. I absolutely hate public speaking, so please bear with me as I get my thoughts out. My husband is a volunteer coach with the MYA and has practice right now, so I dragged my 2 young daughters here tonight. At the last budget committee meeting, the chair mentioned that the public comment that night resonated with the committee. Because of this, I felt it was very important that you all hear from the people who do not want major budget cuts and are thrilled with the recent changes in the district and would like to see it continue. I have a 6th grade son who needed reading services in his IEP until 4th grade. I also have a 3rd grade daughter who was lucky enough to start receiving the full rollout of the new reading curriculum in 1st grade. The difference in their reading instruction has been night and day, and I cannot thank Amy Doyle enough for deciding to come to Merrimack and immediately start reforming the ways in which we are teaching our students. I just went on Performance Matters to check on their iReady scores and was almost in happy tears to see how well they are both currently doing. No one wants to see taxes go up, but I think it is important that people understand the issue is one that goes way beyond the town level. We cannot punish the children of Merrimack because the state has decided to give us less funding for education. We cannot punish the children of Merrimack because the state has decided to use public education tax dollars to fund education freedom accounts, which sends our tax money to schools that do not have the same regulations and accountability that our public schools do. We cannot and should not punish the children of Merrimack because the adults can't figure out how to properly fund them. I do think it is important to be responsible with the spending that is going on in our district. I didn't like getting rid of the French program at JMUS, but I understood it. I was very unhappy when I heard the plan to centralize preschool next year at MES. Both of my older children were lucky enough to have an easy transition across the hall from preschool to kindergarten at TFS. And my daughter, who is currently in the 3-year-old MEEP, will be in 4-year-old MEEP next year. And if we decide to centralize preschool at MES, she will not get that same easy transition with familiar faces right across the hall when she enters kindergarten. But I understand it. I understand that just because it affects my child, it really only affects a small population and can save the district money and resources, so I get it. What I don't get is wanting to cut huge amounts of money that will drastically affect the entire Merrimack public school population. I keep hearing people say that we can't keep spending money and not seeing better results. To these people, I would say it's time for you to look at the current data. All of the early results are showing our investments are paying off. Our elementary age students are scoring much better than the state average in the data that is coming out. I'm so excited that my preschooler will get all of this new curriculum from day 1 in kindergarten. It is always going to be the unhappy people who have the loudest voices and show up in numbers, because those of us that are happy with how things are going are not chomping at the bit to take time out of our lives to tell you all just how happy we are. The happy people are just living their lives, hoping that things will continue on the path they have been going, and don't feel the need to talk about it. But it's important that you know that there are many of us, and the people wanting to cut the budget are not speaking for all Merrimack voters. I also want to make sure we don't chase Amy Doyle off, because she has been a blessing to our town, and I'm so excited that she will be our next superintendent. The CRT talk is just silly. If you have ever listened to Amy speak, it is clear that she is very passionate about finding the best programs and curriculum that is data-driven and science-based and complies with state standards. There are no ulterior motives or need for conspiracy theories. I hope we are fortunate enough to keep her in Merrimack for many years to come. I'm going to take my girls home and watch the rest of the meeting from home.
My name is Olivia Grobecker, and I'm in 3rd grade. I like all the programs that we have. Here are the reasons why. Mystery Science is fun. I like the projects. Within Wisdom, I like since the teacher reads us books sometimes. We are reading a book called Shark Attack. Foundations, I like since you have something called dictation where you get to write. I'm learning about the schwa. The symbol for it is an upside down E. I think we could add something like once a year we could have a pet show and tell where we get to bring our pets if we have one. And we can show everyone at morning meeting and tell stuff about them. This is why I like all these programs, and I think we should keep them.
Are there any other public comments?
Good thing I know you.
Lori Peters, 7 Newton, Chair of the School Board. Coming around your way are 2 pieces of paper. You would have had more, but my printer died, so I will have to email them to the committee members. I'd like to address a few matters that were brought up at last week's budget meeting, as I was out of town at a conference, and I forego my nightly plenary session to watch the meeting. First, I would like to go over the default budget for the public. Before you is a spreadsheet of the default budget that was mailed to committee members and school board members early in January. It shows the calculation of the default budget. It starts with the budget the voters approved, which was the default budget, at $91,301,349. It adds to that number the 2 warrant articles the voters passed. The JMU's roof of $797,000 and the Mesa labor contract year 1 of $1.2 million to that default budget, resulting in an operating budget of $93,298,973. Assistant Superintendent Matt Chevenel did not start with the budget number that was voted down by the public. He started with the default number and added the 2 warrant articles to it for the total operating budget. The default, according to the RSA, starts with the operating budget, subtracts out one-time expenses such as the JMU's roof, which you can see is subtracted out, and then adds in the contractual obligations and the other liabilities that we're required to have in our budget, resulting in a default budget of $95,808,067. I bring this up because of the amount of confusion that I have seen in the community. These are the numbers, and if you want to see them, you can ask a school board member or a budget committee member. The second sheet that you have in front of you, spreadsheet, is based on committee member Anthony's numbers on the expenditures. Last week he shared what was expended, not budget. Now we all know you don't budget based on expenditures alone because you have open positions you're still hiring for, you have increased cost in health insurance, salary raises, etc. But just for fun, as an economist, I took those numbers and I applied the actual inflation of each year from 2018 through this year. Now, tomorrow the inflation number for 2024 will come out from the Fed, but averaging the 11 months of inflation numbers, it's approximately 2.95%. As you can see on your spreadsheet, the expended adjusted budget rises every year because of inflation. Inflation from 2018 on was 2.44, 1.81, 1.23, 4.7%, 8%, 4.12%, and 2.95% for this last year. We do not know what we're expending this year, so I only put the approved operating budget number in, although I've been told by Matt Chevenel there is an anticipated surplus that will be returned to the taxpayer. However, since we do not know the total expenditures, just using that approved operating budget and adjusting for the inflation of 2.95% puts an adjusted budget of $96,051,293, which aligns with the administration and school board's approved budget. Unfortunately, I didn't get to print this out for you, but I'd like to show everyone. This is the Consumer Price Index since 1950. That's inflation of every year. Notice it never goes down. Eggs will never be $1.50 again per dozen, unless suddenly we have millions of farmers who decide to go in the egg industry and supply increases. Inflation goes up, prices go up, supply for papers goes up, insurance goes up. And unfortunately, we have cost items that go up way more than inflation, such as our health insurance. It was mentioned about the cost per pupil. Sorry, purple is my favorite color. Cost per pupil and other comparable districts. The state average is $21,545. Merrimack's cost is $21,044. Those are the DOE's numbers. There are 177 districts in New Hampshire. 117 districts have higher cost per pupils than Merrimack. Now, there are so many factors that go into that, such as how many buildings a district has, the age of their buildings, their teacher-student ratio. Some districts, like Londonderry, have larger class sizes than Merrimack. Those all affect those numbers, and that's why I don't think it's a good measure to simply go for. That's why the state average is a better one to look at. I'd also like to talk about a graph many of us have seen all over social media. If you recall, there's a graph going around about administrators increasing dramatically over the last 50 years, while student enrollment has not risen comparably. So, how many administrators do we have in comparison to other districts? Looking at Hudson, they have the same number of central office administrators. They have one principal and one assistant principal per elementary and middle school. And at their high school, they have 1,000 students with a principal, 3 assistant principals, and a dean of academics. Amherst has the same number of central office employees, one principal, one assistant principal per elementary and middle school. And at the high school that only serves 698 students, they have a principal, 3 assistant principals, and 2 deans. Londonderry, all of these are the same for the district and the elementary and middle school, so I will refrain from going through those. Londonderry, Bedford, and Merrimack. At Londonderry's high school, they have 1,400 students. They have a principal and 4 assistant principals. In Bedford, they have 1,400 students. They have a principal, 1 assistant principal, and 3 deans. Now, Nashua. This is a graph that I will send you. This is their org chart of their administrators. The ones in blue highlighted, we do not have those employees. Those are positions we do not have as administrators. But I've heard Nashua compared against Merrimack. Nashua North has 1,600 students. They have a principal and 4 assistant principals. And at Nashua South, they have 1,700 students, 1 principal, and 4 assistant principals, which we'd expect with those student populations. In Merrimack, at our high school, we have 1,200 students. We have a principal and 2 assistant principal. Administrator salaries encompass 2.5% of the total budget. Our administrators work 12 months of the year and attend meetings, events, and emergency matters outside teacher contract hours. There's a confusion between administrators and administrative positions. Administrative positions include such things as the Title I coordinator, the out-of-district placement coordinator, those kind of positions. We didn't have those 20 years ago. But that's because there have been changes in education and a whole lot of unfunded mandates that require an administrative person to run that mandate. But those administrative positions are 10-month positions. They do not serve for the 12 months, and their average salary is the same as an average salary of a teacher. They do not make administrator salaries. In the document that I will send you, I will also send you from the state of Massachusetts, because New Hampshire has not done this, a document with all of the federal unfunded mandates. Lastly, I'd like to discuss the curriculum. Curriculum is determined based on current and future needs, rigor, critical and higher ordered thinking skills, preparation for the future, and it aligns with the standards. Curriculum is not selected to meet the standards. It is simply to ensure that we are aligned with what the state has required, but that is not the goal we are reaching for. Curriculum is decided by a curriculum committee comprised of multiple stakeholders, building administration, district administration, and approved by the school board. The school board has already approved the curriculum in use. It is appropriate for the school board and budget committee members to ask about the cost items of curriculum. But what curriculum is ultimately chosen is a school board decision alone. There will be no change to the curriculum that has been presented and approved by the school board in 25-26. Any attempt to cut or reduce the line items for the curriculum will most likely result in a discussion by the school board to approve administration's movement of funds from other line items such as athletics and co-curriculars or other line items at their discretion to fund the current curriculum. We will not stunt the terrific improvement in reading and language arts that we have seen in just 1 year of the new curriculum implementation, and we will not risk in any way our moral and legal responsibility to provide the required education under Title 15 Education Law 193E. As a reminder, the Fall 23 to Spring 24 growth and scores can be found on the district website, and the cohort improvement is significant. We expect to see additional growth and proficiency in spring 2025. This is not a failing district. Please look at the data, not websites that have not been updated since 2022. Some on this committee and the district have stated that the initiatives created by the school board, administration, and multitude of stakeholders from the community that created the strategic plan should be slowed down to save money. I encourage everyone to read the strategic plan and see what items they believe to include a cost. The overwhelming majority of the strategic objectives do not entail any money, with curriculum changes being the largest exception, most of which we have already done. We need to continue the forward movement and progress on academic achievement and making Merrimack a premier district. This committee, as does the school board, has a difficult job of ensuring not just an adequate education, but a great education in a safe environment for all students at the most efficient cost possible that also provides access to curriculum, technology, and excellent faculty and staff. The administration has worked hard to provide a budget that meets these goals while also contending with the reality, as all districts do, that 74% of the budget is comprised of contractual obligations, the people who are the heart and soul of providing an education to Merrimack children. I also hope that everyone does their due diligence with a goal of understanding the facts and not from a preconceived misjudgment about the integrity of the administration. It is the responsibility of elected officials to communicate accurate information and correct erroneous information. I do not advocate for anyone or everyone to engage on social media. However, we all have circles of influence that we can provide informed data and facts as they think on these matters. I hope that the misinformation that has been in the community this last week has been clarified, and an understanding of the issues I've brought tonight move this budget process forward.
Hi, Justin Slez, 5 Colonial Drive. I'm with Merrimack TV. We do have an overflow room set up in the memorial room next door, so public comment has to take place here, but we do have a live feed going in that room, and there's more seats over there, so I'm just letting you know, just for kicks, so thanks so much.
Hi, Melissa Blasek, 9 Twin Bridge Road. I wanted to come here today to talk about this misinformation I'm hearing about state portion of funding. Education costs have risen steadily for pretty much ever. The state portion has not been cut at all. In fact, the last budget passed added over $100 million. I don't understand where this information is really coming from. And I also want to add that it doesn't matter where it comes from, it's still coming out of your pocket. If somehow the state was required to to pay more, a larger percentage, they will have to raise your property taxes in the same way that the town does, or implement an income tax to make that happen. It will still come out of your pocket. They don't have a magical bucket of money that they pick off of trees. So it actually, what we really should be focusing on is the per pupil cost, regardless of where it comes from. This is simply, frankly, the latest excuse from big spenders who would like an excuse now that it's quite clear from tonight that more taxpayers and parents are paying attention to budgets more than, frankly, ever that I can remember before. Stop making excuses and focus on the per pupil cost, because that is important, not exactly which level of government that you all fund it comes from. I just want to remind people that Bedford has a lower per pupil cost. They pay their teachers more, and they have better academic outcomes. I'm going to say this slowly. More money does not create better outcomes. The national average per pupil cost is $14,000 per student. Florida is number one in the country for education. They have a lower per child cost. More money does not equal better outcomes. For years, administrative costs, I'm sorry, but they have continued to go up and up and up, and teachers' salaries have remained stagnant. Let's look at the real problems and stop using the state as some type of strange boogeyman. I understand that inflation is a serious issue, and it is for all of us, right? And that is not going away anytime soon. But we all have had to tighten our belts due to inflation, and that problem will not be getting better. And it is time that all levels of government do the same. And those are all my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to listen to my comments regarding the need to move our schools forward in a positive direction. As we all know, a school's reputation makes a town more desirable to live in. I grew up in Merrimack, and I have chosen to raise my children here, as the Merrimack School District was a successful educational experience for me. I'm proud of the educational opportunities my children are receiving here in Merrimack, and I believe that the teachers here in town need to be paid for what they deserve. I have my master's in education, and I've been teaching special education in Nashua for 17 years. I'm proud of that district, and it's a shame that the Merrimack teachers are not being paid an adequate salary. I have many friends and colleagues that support the increase of the Merrimack teacher salaries. The schools here in Merrimack are improving, as the student achievement is evident, and it's been noted with the most recent data and test scores. The Budget Committee charge is to oversee that our school district is adequately funded. I truly hope that you understand that the school district needs to stay professional and that you represent the community. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Heather Robitaille, live at 45 Springfield Circle. This isn't easy. We have a lot of people here, we have a lot of passion, and I'm glad to see this many members of our community show up. I listened to the Budget Committee meeting from last week and heard from the public comments the concern about property taxes. As an over 20-year resident of Merrimack, as a parent of a child in our district, a substitute teacher for the district, and a coach of our local teams, I stand here to say I wholeheartedly agree that our skyrocketing property taxes are a serious issue. Like many things, however, it's not simple. This is a multi-pronged issue where we know that residential property valuation has dramatically increased while our commercial properties have decreased. This burden falls upon each and every one of us in this room to make up the difference. In New Hampshire, since 1993, our state legislators have ignored New Hampshire Supreme Court rulings describing how public education should be funded constitutionally. This is an issue that does, in fact, come from our state not properly funding public education in an equitable way, and it has been found to be unconstitutional. Under the Commission of New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Projects, if a weighted formula was used, then 70% of New Hampshire towns could see a reduction in property rate. This can't be solved by our budget committee. This can't be solved by our school board. But our state legislators can take action. We have 8 state representatives here in Merrimack, New Hampshire, a number who are here with us tonight, and state senator. I would love for every single person in this room to reach out to your state legislators and share your concerns, because I share them too. But I believe in our schools, I believe in our staff, and I am here for them and our community, and this is our future. And these cuts hurt all of us, but we can't also be pricing seniors out of their homes. So we need to look at this from a state level. We need to be smart, budgeting and spending on our local level. But by tearing down our school budgets with arbitrary numbers and lack of understanding on where all of these funds is coming, it's not the answer. I was in your seats last budget season. I know this is tough. I thank you all for being here, and my appreciation to the community for coming out tonight.
Are there any other public comments? Excellent.
Hi, I'm not as put together as everybody else up here today, sorry. You know, it was suggested at the last meeting that we needed to pause progress, the progress that we've seen.
Hold on one moment. Could you
Oh, I'm sorry,
please-
Megan Deliani, 23 Fox Meadow Lane.
Thank you.
Sorry. It was suggested in the last meeting that we need to pause the progress that we've seen since Bill has been superintendent, Amy has helped us out. That kind of struck a chord with me. I know that pausing progress really isn't what we should be looking at. I mean, I understand staggering costs and taxpayer costs are very high, but really, you know, per the recent district assessment results, I mean, we can all see them. They're right on the website. We're in a positive, or we're moving in a positive trajectory. Pausing risks halting this momentum, potentially reversing any of those gains, hindering further progress. At the end of the day, effective education relies on consistent access to funding and resources. So pausing progress really, to me, doesn't seem like something that we should consider at all. We do find ourselves in less than an ideal situation, as Heather just mentioned. You know, the state has put us in this situation, having told us, or the Supreme Court having said that we should be providing so much money per student, but they're basically not going to give it to us. So it's up to our town to figure out how to educate these students properly without that funding. Unfortunately, that falls on our community. I've lived in Merrimack for 20 years. I guess a lot of people maybe think that isn't a long time, but I think 20 years is a pretty good amount of time to understand this community and appreciate this community. And I think that we're all here to support each other and make sure that the young members of our community are educated properly. And if that means that we need to find a different way to pull things together and make sure that the funding is there, then that's what we need to do. You know, it's not just those of us with children. I have 2 children, and they're halfway through school. They'll be out of school in roughly 6 years. I'm still going to live in Merrimack, and I'm still going to pay my taxes, and I'm not going to be happy about it. Nobody likes paying taxes, but I want to make sure that everybody in this community gets an equitable, fair education, regardless. So, in closing, that's pretty much it. That's all I have to say. So I thank you all for doing what you do, and I just want you to know that I think there's more people out there who are against slashing any funding than there are. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Barbara McCormick. I live at 43 Island Drive. I watched the meeting last week on Merrimack TV, and it was an eye-opener. I've been a resident of Merrimack for over 50 years. I live in a small ranch on .344 acres. I don't have any children in the district, never have, and I think that it seems very unrealistic for the amount of children that are attending the school per, I'm sorry, just lost my train of thought. But last week, they were talking about the aging curriculum, and I don't think the budget is straining the aging citizens of Merrimack. I'm 71 years old, I'm on a fixed income, and this increase to property taxes was a surprise for me. The budget that was passed, I have my escrow account to cover my property taxes and insurance, and this is the first time in 2024 that I had to dish out $1,700 that was not in my budget, and now they added $200 a month to my mortgage. My neighbor spoke last week. Her children are in private school, and I have seen a big difference from her taking them out of Merrimack School District to private school. They're flourishing. I'm in the golden years of my life, and retirement was supposed to be an important time for me to enjoy life. And I was trying to save to travel and see different places. It seems the only place I can travel to is downtown Nashua, because I just don't have the money to go anyplace else. Right now, the ratio, according to what was said on the meeting last week, was 12-to-1 student to teacher. What's filling the rest of the classrooms? You have 6 schools, and it's 12-to-1 student to teacher. My generation, growing up, we had a budget that we had to stick to. And if we couldn't afford to go roller skating or out to the movies, we didn't do that. I'm trying to tighten my belt, and I think that you guys should try to do the same. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Leland. I live at 149 Natticook Road. I've lived in Merrimack for 21 years. I've worked in the district for 10 years, and in my current special position as a special educator at the high school for 4 years. Both of my children went through the school district and graduated from MHS, and throughout their school years, we had some good experiences and we had some not so good experiences, but overall, the education they received was adequate and prepared them for what came next in their lives. So as I said, I've worked in the district for the last 10 years, so I've seen it from both sides. First, I was a substitute, then I was a paraeducator, and now I'm a special education teacher and case manager at the high school. I can't speak for the other schools, but it seems like every department at the high school has unfilled positions, and then this requires the current staff to take on more duties and responsibilities. And cutting staff positions and reducing new hires is only going to increase staff burnout and turnover from dedicated educators. And when you lose good teachers, you lose years of experience and mentorship, and that cannot simply be replaced. In watching the previous meeting, several people questioned why more people didn't come to the meetings. For me, I don't come because I expect the elected officials to make informed and intelligent decisions that do the most good for the most people. I expect them to understand the importance of funding education. I expect the people elected to the school budget committee to have a goal of doing good. Our schools are not merely line item. Oh, I missed my page. Lost my rhythm. Our schools are not merely line items on a spreadsheet. Schools are the foundation of our children's future and the backbone of our community. If the current school budget is cut as dramatically and thoughtlessly as being suggested, the students of Merrimack are going to be negatively affected, and the district will continue to lose qualified and experienced educators. Financial decisions made myopically will damage the education of students for years to come. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? All right. Thank you very much, everyone who came to the mic to share your thoughts. All right. The first business before the committee is to share an update from the school board's review of the administration's recommended budget. This was in your packet last week. We got a colorful chart. That looks like this. Everyone should recognize it. This chart details basically that the school board has recommended a reduction of $27,073 from their the administration's recommended budget. This is related to cutting a line item in the police detail line of the high school budget. The new bottom line budget proposal is $96,823,198. The next business before the committee is to hear department budget reviews from each of the schools. To start us off, I'd like to welcome the administrators from the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School to take a seat at the table in case our committee has any questions for you. And my fellow committee member, Mackenzie Murphy, will share her report from their liaison meeting that occurred on January 9th.
Thank you so much, Jen. And thank you to Meg, as well as the Assistant Superintendent, Amy Doyle, for taking the time to meet with myself and Brian Trant. We had a great meeting last week to go over the upper elementary school budget. A few of the items that we did go over, and then I'll hand it back to the administrators if there's anything else they would like to add. And then I'll hand it off to the committee members if they have any additional questions. One of the items that we went over was the overall cost to buy the materials for the curriculum for the science program. We did discuss this, so on line item, and I know you guys don't have your budget books in front of you, but 864118, which was page 10 of our budget books, this line item was reduced last year to bring down the budget. It was a needed line item and has been used every year since then, but they did decide to cut it to reduce the 24-25 budget. The $49,000 was used to purchase materials for the new Open SciEd program. After careful research with the middle school, a lot of the educators were using the materials they created or shared that did meet the standards. The Upper L administration had wanted more standardized programs so that everyone was on the same page. They just implemented that program this year. The program itself is free. The overall cost includes the kits as well as the consumables for that program. Some of those consumables can be reused, but not all. When we met with them, Meg Fowler, the assistant principal, did mention that as part of this program, there are a few units that they do use. There's 6 units available overall, and they have kits available for all of those units for the teachers for those courses. This overall program does follow an inquiry-based approach and allows kids to have discussion based on what they are learning in the course. Every child does receive a workbook as part of this course. The max cost for this is $42 per student per year if they make it through all 6 units. They work closely, again, with the middle school so that they don't overlap in that regard. That was one of the items we covered. We also talked about the Wit and Wisdom program and the increase with that. A lot of this increase is due to the cost of the licenses. We have 19 licenses that are $171 a piece. These licenses also provide online access for the teachers of these courses. Every new teacher as part of this program does receive their own teacher edition. That cost is $196.16. Each student who is involved in this program for each of the modules per student per cost is $5.41 a piece. The upper elementary school did actually receive an overall discount on the program, and they did have to pay a cost in order to ship the materials of $2,279.99. And I'm sure the upper L administrators will add more information when we get to that item. We talked about the $2,000 increase in the co-curricular activities. The upper L administrators were able to add quite a few co-curricular activities, which we're really excited about. Last year, as you know, we cut the Spanish and French teachers. As part of this initiative, we're now partnering with the high school as well as the extended learning opportunities. So students from the high school are able to come down. They formed a French and Spanish club for these students to participate in those clubs. So that's a really exciting initiative, and they're very excited about that. There's also a new opportunity for students that really want to dive more into U.S. history. It allows students to kind of become experts per se in U.S. history, where they learn about how to name the presidents, they learn about the 50 states. They've also added a club for students who like to garden. They have a ski club, escape room, creative writing. So of course there's small costs that go along with this, but that is what the $2,000 increase was for. We talked about the increase in the lines in regard to the field trips. That increase was due to a few of the overall costs in the transportation. This year, the students are traveling to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, which is about an hour away. They're traveling to Strawberry Bank in Portsmouth, again an hour away. The Strawberry Bank trip will replace a Lexington field trip. The rationale for this being was that they believed that the Strawberry Bank Portsmouth was more in a line in what the students were learning in the classroom, which is why they had changed it. We talked about the math interventionist and the cost for that. This position was put in place to boost the math scores, especially in grade 5. This staff member will meet with both grade levels. This response, their goal was to work more with the educators on intervention strategies and work with these educators for kids who might need additional assistance. Several of these kids tested out of the Title I program, but the wait list is still there. However, these individuals are still receiving support from their classroom educators. When we met with the administration, they said it would be great to have another adult in the classroom to provide intervention strategies for these students. In speaking with the administrators and in speaking with Brian Trant, we were talking about one classroom in specific. Their iReady math scores have gone up as a result of this program. The math interventionists, 80% of their time is spent in the 80% of their time is in the PLTs each day. It's important that we understand our data and where the gaps are also. So the goal is to really get more data along with this position. We talked about the computer teacher and the cost for this person. The person that's now in this role, and the person that had it prior, the person that had this role prior had a lot less education, and they also had less experience. So the CBA, which is a collective bargaining agreement, determines the overall cost that we need to pay this individual. in speaking with the administrators, they said that the only way that this position would go away if it was non-renewed for cause and replaced with somebody less expensive. However, the individual in this position is doing amazing so far. When this person applied, they only had 2 people apply into the position. But again, we're very happy with the results of the person in this role. That was a computer teacher. And then I guess 2 other items. Last year we talked about having the round tables in the cafeteria for lunch. This is something they no longer feel like they need. So there was some discussion around that. They currently have 6 lunches with 90 kids in the lunchroom, and all these kids are able to sit at the round table as well. So that's been a great asset and a great addition, so we no longer need the round tables. And then the last item that was requested was in regard to art supplies. The art racks that they have currently are I don't want to say out of date, but they're old, and there's not enough room to place the artwork from 6 classes worth of art. So they have requested, I believe it was around $3,855 to replace the art racks. So that is my update, but I'm going to hand it back to the Upper L administration if they have anything else to add.
Thank you so much, Mackenzie. And we would welcome any questions that you have for us.
I believe we went over it at the meeting, but the coordinator is, like you said, an interventionist, so it's not the same as the Title I. Because that was my biggest question, was the 6-figure income for this person, when it kind of, the description of it sounded just like the Title I. And then I looked up at the state with the paperwork we filled out that said that kids were loving it, teachers were loving it, parents were loving Title I was great. My daughter was in it. She worked her way out of it. Like, everything was great. So it just seemed, I didn't know if it was a redundant thing, but.
Sure, I'm more than happy to explain that. So this will be a salary that's paid on the teacher scale. It will be a person who spends 80% of their time with children, 20% of their time researching what we need to do to make very specific improvements. So looking specifically at the data, attending PLT meetings, as Mackenzie talked about, those are our professional learning teams. So meeting with the teams of teachers, poring over the data and trying to find areas where we can make specific changes to target growth. So this person will be working with teachers. They'll be working mostly with students. The difficulty that we have right now with Title I is we can't service all of the kids who qualify. Unfortunately, we have a waiting list. This person will be able to work with all students, and definitely with the students who are either just who have just made improvements and are off Title I but still need some help, or students that haven't yet been identified to be able to participate in Title I. So we see this. When I think about the data in terms of success, we look towards the elementary schools who have had a position like this in reading for the past 2 years, and they've seen tremendous improvement because it's another net to catch those kids who are just missing something specific, and a person who's going to look at the data to say, what is that specifically? So we're very excited at the possibility of having this person on our staff to serve all of our students.
May I make a comment, please? Brian.
Please.
And committee members, the salary that is listed, or the monetary amount, is the contractual salary according to the collective bargaining agreement, but also benefits in there. So that is not just a salary.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other committee questions regarding JMU's department? Chuck?
As usual, you have done such a remarkable professional job of representing the interests of our school district and our children at your departmental level that it seems that there are no further questions to ask that you were responsible for. Thank you very much. I would also like to say that Mackenzie should be complimented at the examination that she has presented to her fellow colleagues here in regard to that. I would suspect that that has a great deal to do with why there are no questions. A lot was covered, a lot was said. There are none of us that are new to this, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
I'll just make a quick personal comment, not as the chair, but just as myself. I actually very much appreciate the math interventionist and the computer teacher, both as additions here. My son also was in the Title I program for a short period of time for math and graduated out, so I do understand the importance of it. And then also I work in software day to day, so I understand how important it is to make sure that our kids are keeping up with technology. So just wanted to say that I appreciate those two additions as well.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, the computer teacher, it's not a second computer teacher. It was the replacement of the computer teacher who has left. So,
okay. I'll
but
note
this
that.
person comes with an extraordinary level of education and, dare I say, talent. She just really understands how to engage kids and help them to grow and love what they're doing when they're working with her. So that's very exciting for us.
Will there be any emphasis on typing?
That is something that we have always practiced. There's always the practice time for that. It would be interesting to have a conversation with her. I truly believe that she understands where our students are developmentally at this moment. So that would be a conversation that I want to have with her about what is the future for that? What do our kids need? And how do you foresee helping them to, make stronger gains? So yeah, some of them are amazing. And some of them are still typing.
I have 2 one-finger typers, so
Yeah.
that's why I ask. Thank you very much for your presentation, for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and you're free to go. Thank you. All right, next, my colleague Dan Coakley will share the report from the elementary school.
And Madam Chairman, I'd like to ask that the ladies, there are 6 of them, that they be able to stay comfortably where they're seated.
Oh, for sure.
Having met with them, I have no problem that they can answer from there any questions that we might have.
Microphone, just because.
Well, you can come up to the microphone, and you can interrupt me at any time. It was an absolute privilege to meet with you along with my colleagues Shannon and Tony. And please, each of you interrupt me at any point where you think I've gone off stream, which I might do. Okay? The first question that we had was about library text at Mastrocola. And it was, is this supplemental text already contracted? Technically, the answer is no, because July 7th is the purchase date. But they also explained that the inconsistencies that we saw were based on enrollment. There were any new texts for math studies. There were individual texts for the classrooms. And this supplemental text is to help with map studies called Champ Atlas, and it would be new. The next question was also on reading at Mastrocola. And the question was, what is being bought? Is this a recurring amount each year for Wit and Wisdom? The answer was that they purchased both online and text. It was originally in the district budget and was moved to the school budget. That created some issues and a question for Matt, and I've reached out to Matt on that. And so what it did was it presented 0 as an expenditure for last year and then an expenditure this year, which creates some heart palpitations amongst the people on this board. They said that everything was the industry standards and that the library line in the line item in the district section was moved into this school section, so that created some issues. Next question was on library text, and it was, what is being replaced? Is this new material? Can these materials be shared from our other 2 elementary schools? It was pointed out that this was a district issue. SLP is now co-curriculum, and it had things like student council. And again, it was a switch in the line, so there was nothing in the previous year, and this line now shows up in the school district budget. So that's a Matt question as to what was the issue, what was the number before. I'm sure it's been corrected. Matt doesn't miss those types of things. The next question was for Reed's Ferry, and it was about co-curricula. It was, how many extra employees will you need? What activities will they include? And the answer was, there are no new employees. This is for clubs in elementary school. Up to 10 clubs for fall, winter, and 10 clubs for the spring, summer season. Clubs such as student counselor that would need a facilitator with a $250 stipend. There is a new SLP, and it was realigned. Mastrocola spent $8,000, Reed's Ferry $4,000, Thornton Ferry $5,000. The next question was about the police. The question was, who paid for the police details before? Was it the PFA? The answer was that the PFA has paid for them in the past. They've been asked by the SAU. Some events have been paid by PTFA. There are specifically 4 events at Thornton's Ferry, 3 at Mastrocola, and 5 at Reed's Ferry. A comment from Bonnie was that the PFA, PFT, since COVID, nearly stopped, and it's been hard to reestablish them. So if you could, the crowds that we're getting here tonight, if we could get them behind the PFA, we'd start eliminating that. An example would be meet and greet at the beginning of the year. They must pay officers a minimum of 4 hours if they're used. Currently, Thornton's Ferry has 4 events, MES has 3, and RFS has 4 events. Shannon made a comment that if PFA sponsors an event, it should come from their budget, and in the past it was pulled from PFA. Next question was on classroom supplies. Why is this a big jump from previous years? What's being added? What alternatives were discussed? What were those costs? It was pointed out that big jump was 52% at Reed's Ferry, 20% at Mastrocola, and 36% at Thornton's Ferry. It was pointed out that paper cost in 2021 was $26. Today, that same paper cost $46. Paper's outpacing inflation. The bids are not empowered now. They have to adhere to per pupil. The classroom supplies are everything but curriculum. It increases by teacher count. Teachers buy much of those materials with their own money. Next one was on a line called community relations. And there was some discussion by our team whether it should be called that. But the question was, who supported the breakfast before? Was it the PFA? Mastrocola said the PFA numbers have depleted. They have things like the Hawk visitation, when the seniors come into the schools and parade through, and then they give them a meal afterwards. Book fairs don't raise enough money for these type of things. Donations are not enough. There are some shifting accounts. They also have things called bus driver appreciation and teacher appreciation events. Shannon noted that previously was sponsored by the PFA. Anthony made a comment that the name of the line item is misleading. The next item was on books. The question was, can these books be shared amongst other schools? This was a line item, again, that used to rest in technology, but there's no previous number there to show the growth or finance, what it is. And again, I've contacted Matt, and he will get back to us to direct that. A discussion about SEL was talked. Shannon mentioned that everywhere she has looked on the internet, she does not show that SEL is mandated by the state. A quick Google search while there stated, while the state of New Hampshire does not mandate the implementation of EEL practices, the New Hampshire DOE does offer information and resources to help New Hampshire and districts consider a comprehensive approach to SEL. Thornton's Ferry principal states that she'd investigate it more and email the team on what is our duty to provide SEL. She thought that it was mandated, but will get back to us. We noted that there was a 19% increase at Reed's Ferry. The answer was that they added both teachers and counselors. There was a question of staff versus enrollment. What was the ratio? And the answer was there were a lot of legal mandates on IEPs that raised that cost. We asked about the enrollments, and we're told that Reed's Ferry has 506, Thornton's Ferry has 502, and Mastrocola has 354. It was noted that there was a 50% increase in kindergarten. The answer was that there was now an instructional aide for each class. There was a notification that external contracts were up 300%. The answer was that you had the salaries rising, which we have no control over, but there were also legally mandated non-funded mandates. This committee wanted to ask for a list of all non-funded mandates, because that seems to be something that's hurting us. And it was discussed and told that there's a new law for reading and science, and everybody agreed that it was a wonderful thing and we should have it, but nobody's paying for it. So they're saying you must do this. Mandated means you have to do it, but we're not giving you any money to do it. There was a question on lunch service, but we think we worked that out. It seemed like it was divided between food service and the schools, and having had a meeting at food service today, I think we have that question. There was a question on furniture. This was additional furniture that was needed. There was a question that states, it looks like this budget just added a percentage across the top. So we asked what the budget process was. And these principals told us that they met individually and went through this budget line by line. And that's what they did. There was a question on PD and consumables and whether we were getting the best deals from vendors. That was referred to Amy, and she and I have been in communication about that. And I thank you for that. We asked, what did you want that you did not budget for? And the crazy answer was a climbing wall in one of the schools. But the teacher there that had that felt this was meaningful. They were asked if there were no budget restraints, what would this budget include? Unanimously, all three said staff. Staff, that's what they need. We asked them, what effect, if any, did last year's votes have on your students? And they said, none at all. None of the students were affected by the votes. We asked them, what did it have on your staff? They said, possibly they were not sure they were still appreciated. And they didn't understand the reasoning behind the decisions of that vote. The final question that we asked was, what question did you expect us to ask that we did not ask? And we got a funny look. And I said, take all the time you need. But there was nothing there. So we still have the question of the moving items, which I'll get with Matt and we'll get an answer. There also is a request to define improvement. Okay, we keep saying it improved. Well, I got an email that the rest of you all got today. And I have a granddaughter who's adopted from China. She's on an IEP. But in the past year, she's made so much improvement, they expect she's going to get out of the IEP. As a grandfather, I got to tell you, that's great. If I can make a statement, I think all of you in this room should be very happy to have these 6 women dealing with your students every day. And I have nothing more to add.
Does the committee have any questions for the department heads? Seeing none, we will move on. I'd like to invite my colleague Rachel Pepke to share a report from the Merrimack Middle School from the liaison team meeting that took place on 1/6 at MMS. You may come to the mic if you like, or you may stay seated.
Thank you. Okay, we had our middle school liaison meeting that consisted of Mr. Bozeman, Miss Hoppe, myself, Mr. Trant, Miss Bernier, and Miss Berry. So we were all in attendance, and we got to talk about all of the fun things that are happening at the middle school. We got to talk about general schedules of how the 7th grader day looks and the 8th graders day look and what their schedules are kind of like, as well as getting to go through many of the line items that we are going to step through right now. So I'm going to try and provide a quick overview of the questions that we spoke about. And again, for the committee members that were there, if I do miss anything, please feel free to pop in and let me know what I forgot. For those of you that have a budget book, I will reference the page number. For those of you in the audience or at home, you can download these from the website if you do want to go back and reference any of the page numbers. I think I'll just find it easier to go through like this. So for the middle school, we're going to start with the first object of 8,300 on page 1. That first line item, testing and scoring, that was just the line item for iReady diagnostics. So it's being used across the district, and it's being used in both 7th and 8th grade. There was no change from the expended from the prior year. The third line item, the academic assistance program. So that right now is currently a line item for the after school program. So it's a stipend to pay the staff members to go and help our students. This program is accessible to any student at the middle school. They do have a sign-up Genius per se, right? And so students, all they have to do is go in, register, so that teachers know who's showing up that day and how many staff that they need available. But this is something that is offered year-round and is very popular with the students. As we move through, we had items on, we get to skip a little chunk on page 4. So one of the line items that Mr. Bozeman talked about during his presentation to the school board was having a Civil War presentation come into the school. And so he put into the budget request for next year the small request for that, because generally it was being paid for by the parent group, and this was something that they considered important enough that all students should have this every year. So if the money wasn't there from the parent group, that no student class should forego that just because it wasn't funded that year. So we spoke about that. And then we get to move upon to page 6. There's a line item for travel for MMS, and 2 years ago, the 2023-24 expended was $420. The 24 budgeted is $2,000 as well as next year's budget. So the question was, why was there such a jump? And this right now is for the planned school year. There is the New England League of Middle Schools is going to be coming in to assess the school. So the way it was explained was it is kind of like when the high school goes through their accreditation process, we have outside folks come in, they assess all parts of everything that's happening at the middle school, from instruction to activities to all of those pieces that play into it. So we have that going on, and then there's funding on that line also for the steering committee to make those site visits. So this is not going to be a recurring cost. Once that assessment is done, that cost will go away, and we could possibly see it again, should it come back up again in the next cycle, in the normal cycle. I don't know how many years that is, though. Okay. As we move through, there was discussion on page 8 for the health supplies. Again, this was something that was being brought up in the presentation to the school board. It is in the front of the packet. So there is an increase on that line item. So that line item pays for the typical nurse supplies. So that's your normal bandages, Band-Aids, splints. But then this year, there was also a request for the next proposed school year to add in items that are for general hygiene or water, right? And some of the discussion that we had as a group was the pros and cons of, having those consumable water bottles, being good stewards of our environment. But really, it came down to, that was something that when kids come down and are not feeling well, sometimes they need that water to just get them, out the door on their way home, or it's something that they might just need if they're feeling well enough to stay in school, just to get to the class. So it's really just there as a last ditch kind of effort for the kids to keep moving along into the classrooms. But those, again, are supplies that the school nurse has done a tremendous job over the past years trying to secure donations from outside companies, and really as everybody's costs are increasing, companies just are not donating as much anymore. So this is really just to ensure the health and the safety of our students that go to the nurse's office for these items. And that difference too, we did talk about that. Mr. Bozeman did provide us. It's about $600 of that difference. The rest of it is for those typical bandages, splints, those types of items. Oh yes, and sorry, thank you, Brian. So yes, and on that line item, same one, first item on page 8, there was a big expenditure in 2023 of almost $5,700, and that was for transportable AEDs that were purchased in the 2023-2024 school year. So those are for all of our sports teams or any other activity that is traveling far enough away that does not have access to the on-site AED, excuse me. So that would, so we have those now on site. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, on page 9, we have our math supplies. This line item we spoke about again for the 2023-24 expenditure. So I think we did get to hear about it just like other schools. We see a big line item going up compared to what was budgeted that year. And again, this was just the purchase of that math curriculum Big Ideas for both 7th and 8th grade. And this was really the school allocation. So this is Matt. It's an accounting thing. It's him putting it into the right line item to be accounted for instead of being accounted for at the district level. That was a one-time expense to actually purchase the curriculum, and the amount that we'll see in the following years are just for the consumables. On page 10, same type of same type of topic, we have the science supplies curriculum. And so that line item increased in the 2025 request. This increase in the request was for the Open SciEd curriculum. This is, again, for the supplies for the curriculum, not the curriculum itself. But that $13,000 encompasses the lab kits for that Open SciEd program. Those lab kits both consist of consumable items as well as non-consumable items. And so a lot of the discussion that we had around those was, anything that could be saved, cleaned, reused, definitely was. So the teachers are doing a great job maintaining those, or will be doing a great job maintaining those. And there are just some consumable items when the students make bath bombs, let's say, right? We can't reuse bath bomb materials because, we all know what bath bombs do. So it's that type of material that gets replaced versus some of the equipment that stays, supports, items for their physics units, or some of their chemistry units. So they keep model cars. They have speakers that simulate sound waves so the kids can see how sound waves move versus, right, because we can't see. So it just gives those visuals and really helps the kids, learn that material. Okay, on page 11, we have the athletic supplies. So we had a couple of questions and discussions around this line item with the increase in the 2025 line item. So one note on this line item is there was one team that was erroneously left off by mistake, and that was the cheer spirit team. You will see that they do have they are in the front of the budget, so it was only in this one line item where their cost for supplies was erroneously left off, and it's about $1,000, and that's to support entry fees and rights to the music that they use in their competitions. Some other areas that we talked about in this line item were both the boys B soccer team need for adding a second team, and also boys and girls lacrosse. And so these are new requests for the 25 school year, and these were both supported by data and by parent and student request. So Mr. Bozeman did a good job talking to the school board when he gave his presentation about just how many students for the boys soccer team year after year after year have been trying out and how many get cut. So there is a need for that. They could fill easily a second soccer team, it sounds like, and still not have every child make it. And again, they also looked at the girls' soccer team too to see if a B team would be required, but there was not the need. So they're not cutting as many girls. They wouldn't be able to fill a girls' soccer team at this point in time. So that's why you only see the request for a boys' soccer team. And that soccer team does include the coach stipend in that line item for this year. The boys and girls lacrosse, that includes the coach stipend as well. It is 2 teams, and both of those requests include all of the equipment that would be needed that is kind of atypical, that you wouldn't expect a child to come with. So in lacrosse, I hear it's goalie equipment, it would be the nets, that type of equipment. And we did have a lot of discussion too of just, did the school talk with the MYA? Did we, get feedback from parents and students? And they really did do a good job of, getting that input from parents and students. And it sounds like the students are so excited to have the opportunity to potentially have 3 new teams next year to participate in and show Merrimack pride. Okay, on page 12, we talked about on that first line item for library and supplies. A question came up was just what type of items are needed for the SEL needs under library supplies. And that is really materials such as say coloring books or games or things to support lunch groups that our librarian uses. For kids that come in and just need a break from the classroom, or they just need their time to ground themselves, and so they're able to go back into the classroom and access their learning. So again, these are materials that will be used for the students. On page 13, we had a question on if the world language texts would be reusable, or if they would have to be purchased every year, and they will be reusable. So as you've heard tonight too, and if you followed last year, the world language program was cut from the upper elementary. And so now we also had discussions too of just what that structure looks like at the middle school. So world language is now offered as a unified arts. It is part of that rotation, so students will get exploratory French and exploratory Spanish in 7th grade and 8th grade. And there are options to also, once you're in 8th grade, to take one of the languages, I believe, for credit, if that's correct. Yep. Okay. But these texts support that exploratory level. Nope, just that. Okay, and then I'm still on page 13, the bottom two, the science text and the social science text. So the science text is just this Junior Scholastic Science World set. The middle school used to carry one set, and they would pass it around, and by the end of the year, it would be all torn apart and not usable. So what they are trying to do now is get one set per team. There's 3 teams per grade level. So there's 3 7th grade teams, 3 8th grade teams. The cost requested there for 3 class sets. And then the bottom line, the social science text, you'll see a large expenditure on the 23-24 expended, again, much, much higher than what was budgeted. And again, this goes back to the district purchased the Open SciEd curriculum for both 7th and 8th grade. Accounting-wise from the district, this was the allocation for the middle school's portion of that curriculum.
I just think we should tell them the number because it justifies the question. The budgeted amount was $800 and the expended amount was $100,442.81. So that was the, oh my God, what is that? Like you went from $800 to a summer cottage up north. Like something happened there that was not, how did we not prepare for that? But I believe that wasn't a one-time expense. That's what we said. It wasn't something that was going to recur every year. I just want to say just to get it out there, because it's good to say that, but no one out there knows what the actual number was. So it's puts a little bit better into context. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Brian. And I'm trying to not read numbers because I feel like once numbers come out, people really start glazing over. So I do appreciate when you step in and do that because it's good. It's good context. Thank you. Okay, page 14, we have reading text, and this is for the Wit and Wisdom program again. So for right now, Wit and Wisdom is being taught through 7th grade. So the request for 2025 will be to bring the curriculum through 8th grade. And that includes teacher kits for the 8th grade teachers. And then so it is a breakout. So the kits comprise of about $13,500, which is a one-time expense. And then we get into annual expenses, and that is for both printed material and digital material. And that covers both grades. But you will see that line item go from about $27,642 in that request next year. So in the 26 budget, it should get reduced by about $13,000. Okay, page 15, we did talk about the second line item down. We have the health additional equipment. So there's a request for 4 of the alcohol eye goggles as well as 2 CPR mannequins. And so the mannequins, we talked mostly about the mannequins in that line item, and the mannequins that were at the middle school were just overused. So as part of health program, is that correct? Thank you. The kids get to learn and play, not play, but learn how to do CPR on the mannequins. They do not get certified, but it is more of just immersing them with, CPR as a function, and getting to know the techniques of it. So we needed to replace the mannequins, so that's on that budget line item. Okay, and I am almost done. We have a couple more things. Page 16, we have some furniture replacement. some music equipment replacement and some science equipment replacement. This will be a question we might have to defer to when Matt is here. But the question was, the cost of the items are listed out, but then we tack on an additional 5% to account for inflation. And so I know that Matt is something that he provides the district with, adding inflation to all of the supplies. So that was just one area where we still had a question. And then the last two things that we did speak about were bringing a unified sports team to the middle school. So we had a good discussion there, and that is something that Mr. Bozeman has been actually actively pursuing. So it sounds like he is trying to gather information, get some research, and it sounds like it could be something that potentially, the middle school could offer sometime in the near future. And then the last thing that we spoke about was the role of the Dean of Students. So under the principal line item in the front of the book, that line item went up from the expended from a couple years ago, and that was because they added another role, and that was the Dean of Students. So they have Mr. Bozeman, Ms. Hoppe, and Mr. Jennings as the Dean of Students. I think that is all that I have from our meeting. If there's anything else that you guys would like to add, or the committee, please feel free to do so.
Just thank you, Ms. Papke, and of course all of our committee members for meeting with us and asking such thoughtful questions and really keeping students and their opportunities at the forefront of all of your questions. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much for your time. You are free to leave out, or you can stay and hang around for more time.
Excellent. Thank you.
Next, I would like to invite my colleague Mackenzie Murphy to share her report from the high school liaison meeting, which was held on January 6th at MHS.
Thank you so much, Jen. We met last Friday, myself, as well as Marie Berry, as well as Mr. Mower, and we met with Steve Clare. We also met with Jill and Rich, as well as Bill Olson and Matt Chevnell, to go over the high school budget. I would like to go over 5 of the larger increases in the budget. Overall, there were, I would say it was a pretty flat funded budget. There were some items that increased, some items that went down. But again, I'd like to start out by going over the larger increases. One of the larger increases was under the athletic equipment line. That was page 36, line item 24873931. That was an increase of $22,500. That was to replace 20 of the helmets for the football players, as well as the lacrosse helmets and pads, which right now are actually beyond repair, and to also purchase new blue uniforms for the football team. While these uniforms were replaced in the year 23-24, the blue uniforms were last purchased, or the current blue uniforms were last purchased in 2019, and are beyond cleaning at this point, or being able to be repaired. On page 2, under the home game management line, that's line item 2483331, which is under the athletic officials. There's an increase of $31,261. This is to pay personnel who officiate and or work at the home games for the various interscholastic sports. This formula is used by the New Hampshire IAA to calculate the officials' fees, assigner fees, and the addition of coaches' education and training. The state assigner fees have increased over 73% per sport, and officials' pay rates and mileage set by the state have increased $3 to $5 per official per event in the last 2 years. Though we do have a level funded for this year. In regard to the mileage used is only to be paid for more than a 40-mile drive, but now is paid no matter how far they drive. Up to 10 miles is now paid at a minimum of $10, and up to 40 miles is now a minimum of $20. Game managers are required at football as well as basketball games due to having crowds of over 250 people. The extra game management line for each season is to cover days when multiple events do happen at the same time at many venues. The next item that's an increase I'd like to go over is an increase in regard to the new requirement for students to graduate from high school. This is an increase of $32,715 to purchase updated textbooks for the civics courses to support the state mandated exam requirement, as well as texts for the second year of a new course. The last course textbooks were published in 2009. Another item, increase in transportation costs on page 7. There's an increase of $22,292. That is line item 24851931. This is to transport all interscholastic teams to away contests, including the scrimmages and games. This cost includes wait time, cost per mile, and potential playoff games for fall and winter and spring. Both mileage and wait time fees have been increased by the STA. These numbers were calculated by an average of the distance to other Division I schools, which is around 27 miles, and the average length of the game and matches. Last but not least, a larger increase is line item 17851030, page 7. That's an increase of $17,456 to the CTE programs. This is to provide student transportation to students wishing to participate in the CTE programs at Nashua North and South and Alvern High School. The increase is due to the rising bus fees set by STA and more accurately reflects the recent expenditures. And this increase came right to us from Matt Chevenel. Another big item that I'm sure you are all wanting to know about is the police detail. That's outlined on page 2. The high school administration had initially requested an increase of $31,261. As of the 8th of this month, they now don't believe that we will need to budget for having a Merrimack Police Department detail at each home game. This resulted in this line item being decreased from $140,929 to $118,045. Another item that we talked about was line item 17851030 on page 7, an increase of $17,546. Again, that is the CTE line, which I think I just talked about. And then last but not least, one of the items that I wanted to cover was an increase in the marketing in the school store for our high school students. And bear with me, my laptop just turned off. This line item, the students at the high school that participate in the accounting and the marketing courses are the students who run the school store at the high school. And right now, students are only allowed to use cash for that program. Due to only being able to use cash, this also reduces the sales they're able to make. Right now, they're using a notebook to take the inventory of the items, and they have to place their order by hand. If we implement a point of sale program, students will be able to do everything electronically. This is an increase of $1,500. This will allow the students to embed, download into a sheet, and send their information over to the student activities directors. This will allow students, if they have like a credit card, to actually use that to make purchases at the schools. The other line item that we went over is on page 1, item 378331-31. We talked about the $12,000 for the cost of the test scores. This includes the PSATs as well as the SATs. The PSATs are $14 per assessment. That's for the PSA 9. For the PSA 10, that's $18. Right now, we're testing all of our students in schools, and that adds up to a cost of about $8,000 for 550 students. Add another $4,000 for the SATs, there's your $12K. Right now, the PSATs and the the PSATs are the only progress monitoring tool we have for the 9th and 10th grade. I'm sorry, I'm just reading my notes. We do know that from research, the more that the students take the PSAT, the more prepared they are to do well when they take their SATs. It also provides students with more scholarship opportunities when those students are done with high school. We talked about, or maybe that's it. I actually think that's all I have. So I'm going to hand it back to the district administration and then to the rest of the team if anyone has anything else they'd like to ask or add.
Thank you, Mackenzie. My name is Steve Clare. I'm the principal. This is Rich Samperry, assistant principal
Microphone.
for 25 years. And this is Jill Hamlin, assistant principal. So thank you very much for summarizing that, Mackenzie. There was a number of additional questions that were asked. I don't know if you wanted me to review them, or, I mean, there's a number of questions that were asked in our meeting. Everything from, our CTE students to our graduating pathways programs. Did you want to review some of those, or?
Yeah, I can add a few, and then if you want to add whatever I'm missing.
Yeah, sure, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Steve. We also talked about the Merrimack program with the mentors and the costs associated with those. And I'm just, again, scrolling down through my notes. That cost is $4,500. And so I had asked why the cost was so high for these programs. The overall cost is due to the transportation of the buses. There's about 120 students who participate in the Merrimack Mentors program. The dance team at the high school also comes and they do a dance recital with the lower elementary school students. Some of the high school students also participate in a cultural equality program, and they come and read a book to the students. They also do an activity with the students after that focuses on students participating in good works after the reading. There's about 60 to 70 students participating in that program. We talked about, Marie Berry asked a few questions, and I will go over a few of those. We talked about the ELO program and the graduation pathways. So right now the high school has an adult ed diploma program. We have about 75 students that are participating in the Extended Learning Opportunities program. We have about 50 extended learning opportunities in place. We just had an adult ed, we did just have an adult ed diploma graduation, and we plan to have another one in February for this specific semester. There was seed money of about $15,000 for this program that I believe now has gone away, if I'm correct in that.
That is correct.
We talked, Marie Berry had asked about having an academic interventionalist. Steve Clare had mentioned that this position was an open position at the high school. This was filled with an internal staff member. They're not planning to add this into next year's budget. It's under the district budget, under the contract for the MTA. And I think that's all I had, Steve, if you want to cover the other ones.
Thank you again, Mackenzie. I don't know who asked this question, but it was regards to page 30, line 100, 1148488750-31. Does this line item include Power School? And it does not include the main Power School costs covered. That's covered by IT, but this line item covers Naviance. It's a counseling software, parent-teacher conference scheduler, and behavioral management add-ons that work with Power School. This line also includes our visitor management system software, theater scheduler, and a school-wide teacher resource program. Let's see. That was not asked. We were asked on other expenditures, can you provide any data as to instances at games over the last year that where the police detail was utilized? You know, traditionally up until about 2 years ago, and this is very consistent throughout the state, we typically have detail 4 police officers at our football games due to crowd sizes, 2 police officers at our basketball games. I'd say about the fall before last, there was an increase in athletic event, school events, school shootings. And I consulted with the SAU at that time just to increase the presence of police at as many home games as we could, and that was approved at that time. At this point, we talked about it a little bit over the summer, and we put in a request to do the same, but after consulting and collaborating with the school board, we decided to pull back from that. We do have a little extra money for next year's budget in case situations arise. For example, you know, sometimes if it's a very important game, there'll be social media chatter between both schools that could lead to some sort of event at a school. We have some flexibility to add police detail as needed. So that was that. We were asked about equal uniform replacement. And yes, all uniforms are replaced about every 4 to 5 years. All of our uniforms for all of our sports teams are paid for by gate sales other than football. We have to budget for the football uniforms. Let's see, Merrimack, you talked about Merrimack Mentors. I think Mackenzie asked about the $2,000 for college field trips and where we were going. At this point, we students were taking the SNHU, UNH, NHTI for college information and tours, as well as the Portsmouth Naval Yard. And Mackenzie had made a recommendation to try to expand that, and we're going to take a look at that. And do you want to talk a little bit about co-curricula?
So the co-curricular question was asked, and that was mostly increased due to, we used to have a gifted and talented program, and that has kind of been absolved to provide enrichment to the kids. So that those funds were transferred to the co-curricular pieces, so we could give those to the, you know, we could keep supporting that protocol. In addition, we needed new color guard uniforms, so that money came out of that. We do have a new, we have 2 club fairs, one in the evening and one at lunches for the kids, but we have to rent tables for those, so that's a cost in there as well.
Can you think of anything else, Mr. Z?
I think we've covered everything, and if not, we'll answer any questions.
Yes. So I think that
And I
kind
think
of
there's only one other question, it looks like, around the league dues. So some of the facilities we use, such as the University of New Hampshire, Dartmouth, Plym, we do have to pay dues in order to use those facilities. So that's what that was around.
I don't have any questions, but just a couple quick comments. And I'm sorry, committee, I didn't see any hands. So, oh, Chuck, go ahead. I'll open it up. Go ahead, Chuck.
I admit it's difficult to see a full-figured individual like myself this far away, but I am nevertheless in attendance and grateful to be here. I would like to say that I attended the liaison meeting with Mackenzie and Marie, and I certainly accept Rachel's sincerest apologies about a conflict that prevented her from being there. Once again, I have to compliment our administration in their professional presentation. Not only are they required to professionally promote a budget, but more often it seems their task is to defend their proposals. And I think they did both quite adequately. And I want to thank them very much. I would also like to add that at this point we've heard from all of our school liaison reports and so forth. And we can see that we have an excellent team working on our behalf. And the Budget Committee's job, of course, is to create and recommend a budget. We tend to focus on what we can do without, as opposed to what might best advance us for the long term. I suppose that's the human element in many respects. But I think it's important that we focus on what the vision of a school district is when we create and recommend a budget. And to that extent, I would like to once again illuminate the community that the money that is spent by the school district, and that is largely on labor and other goods and services, don't go to some foreign country and down some rat hole somewhere. This is money that goes into our community. The school district is an integral part of our municipal corporation here in Merrimack. And we spend in our community and in our region for the economic benefit of this region. It's not just about educating children. It's about a stable and functioning economic engine that promotes public education. Of course, we're all concerned about our children, as well we should be. But for those of us that no longer have children in the district, or those of us who have never had children in the district, or never will have children in the district, public education ensures that when you purchase a service from an individual, they are competent. They provide you with the service that you want. And that resides in the educational development of children until they are ready to enter the marketplace with the rest of us. You want your pizza delivery driver to know how to drive a car, how to make change, and how to get to your house and back. And you want your dental hygienist to be competent, and your attorneys, and all of these various careers that our students will take up or are presently engaged in. It is to benefit the public. Yes, some of us do cherish a larger idea about educating children, but public education is something that is a stabilizing necessity in the functioning of any community and any economic arena. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie?
I have a couple of fairly general questions that really apply to all of the school budgets. And they may be questions that are more because I'm first year on the committee. The object lines 8120 and 8121, which are substitutes for professional development, and there's two separate lines. And I was wondering why that's split into two lines. It's, okay, I'm looking at the budget unit section, and I'm looking at page 22. 1118, 18, 81, 20, and 1118, 18, 81, 21, right at the bottom of the page 22. And every school has an 8120 and an 8121. And I was just wondering what the difference between them is, and also sort of a related question, why they have such large increases. The 8121, the lowest increase over the 2023-24 spend was 215%, and then one of them was actually 15,405%. And the 8121 line was, the lowest was 413%, the highest was 3876%. So I was just wondering, I know it has to do with professional development and subs for people who are having professional development. Why are there two lines, and why is there such a big increase from last year? I guess those are my question.
Mrs. McCormick, if I may, that I can't answer that question because that's not part of the high school budget.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep, it's
just-
not
we're
part of
just-
this department. That would be, I think, under an administration.
Is that like a
question?
district-wide question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to give my district-wide notes, and then
Okay.
we'll revisit your
That's
question.
fine.
How's
like,
that?
Like I said, I'm the first year on the committee, but that just stood out to me because of the large increases and the two lines.
Okay.
I also had just one other question. I noticed generally in all of the school budgets that the department head and curriculum coordinators, they call it salaries, but I think they're stipends. Is that correct, for like a department head, a stipend? And those seem to have quite a bit higher increases than the increases for the other Merrimack teacher lines. And I'm wondering, are those department head stipends included in the MTA agreement? And were the increases in those stipends generally a higher percentage than just the salaries?
So I think that question is also going to be a district-wide
A
question.
district question,
Yeah.
okay.
So
All
we'll
right.
revisit that as well.
Yeah, all right.
Gives our
Thanks.
district folks a moment, a little heads up for some tough questions coming your way. All right. Any other questions for our high school guests? Okay. Then I'll share my comments. I just had a couple quick things. Number one, I think the new football uniforms are stunning. I look out at that field and I'm like, they look really good. So kudos to that choice. I also am proud to see that there are new civics texts. Can you talk a little bit about what that civics program is and maybe the focus of some of those texts?
It's part of our social studies curriculum required by the state. All of our students are going to have to pass the civics exam,
Mhm.
and I know our department head has been working with Amy Doyle about researching the proper civics book for next year. Right now, our civics book's dated back in 2009, so it'll be encumbered in our social studies program.
Is that text available for the public to see?
I don't believe they've actually purchased it yet.
Oh, okay.
They have not purchased it yet.
Okay. Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. Can you talk a little? Another question I had is, this came up, I think, on social media, so I'm just going to ask it since we're in a public forum. The gate sales money for football games, what does that go to?
That goes to do uniforms for all other sports other than football. We wouldn't be able to pay for football uniforms with our gate money.
Gina, did you have a question? Gina? All right. Are you there? It's me, Margaret.
I did not.
Okay.
Thank you. I did not. Did I raise my hand accidentally?
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Just thank you very much for your time and for joining us.
Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, we will finish our department-wide updates with a district-wide liaison meeting update from yours truly. Yes, I believe all principals may leave if you like. You can certainly stay. You're welcome to, but do not feel obligated to stay for the rest of our business meeting. Great. I'm not trying to kick you out. I'm just letting you know. Okay. So we met as a liaison team on January 2nd. The attendees were myself, Caitlin, Mackenzie, Bill, Amy, Matt, Melissa Fazik. Is that how you say it? Fazik. And Rachel, who could not join us. We met, essentially to develop a little bit of an understanding of what some of the areas are in the district-wide budget so that we could help the rest of the budget committee as we discuss their proposal. We talked about some of the areas of improvement that the district has been focusing on for the last few years, including curriculum updates, implementing assessments and data for progress monitoring, such as iReady, policy and handbook updates, consistency across the district, across different schools with programs, policies, et cetera, and oversight of the special education program. We discussed the literacy improvement efforts that the district has invested in, which includes direct, explicit instruction to drive reading proficiency, the purchasing in previous year of Foundations, Letters, and Haggerty as a new reading program that's been very successful, and the district leadership anticipates improvements in reading comprehension with the implementation of Wit and Wisdom. We briefly discussed professional development line items. There are two. I won't say the line item numbers because they're long, but there were two different ones. One is required by teacher contracts versus one that was funded to train on the new curriculums that were purchased. We noted that teacher contract revisions and the wage increases that voters have approved for teachers and support staff in the last two voting cycles have improved our ability to attract and retain quality educators in the district. We are no longer grappling with bringing in new teachers and seeing them leave after a few years for other districts with better pay and benefits. We do still have a number of unfilled positions, including primarily paraprofessionals and custodians. Those positions remain unfilled and are contracted out. The district has identified a need for a dedicated admin / 504 coordinator to improve service delivery of IEPs and 504s. We discussed retirement funds. There are two line items. One is for classified staff and one is for professional staff. We talked a little bit about what it means. There's a note in our binder that they've sort of leveled off or that they've stabilized. We talked about what that means so that we could better help our committee understand that essentially that's the percentages of employer contributions that the district makes to retirement benefits, and there are various percentages based on different populations of staff, and those percentages and rates vary and have varied in the last couple of years, and they are they're basically leveled off at this point. So they were able to budget an amount that they feel pretty confident about because those rates have leveled off. We discussed the increase in the cost of medical benefits. It was 15% last year and another 10% this year. So we're definitely seeing a year-over-year significant increase in that. And the 10% for this year is about a $1.2 million addition to the budget in the line item that Lori Peters went over when you start talking about the default plus the things that the voters voted in plus all the contractual things that we must do. There was a lot of increases in these contractual areas, including retirement contributions and medical benefits. We briefly discussed grants and state aid. We only had an hour, and I had a hard stop, so briefly discussed them. Everyone on the committee did receive a handout, I think 2 meetings ago, regarding state adequacy aid for your review. Did you want to share anything about that specifically, or would you like me to continue and then? Okay. There was a question posed by the committee about a $1.5 million line item called federal funds in the budget. And Matt was able to let me know that those are budgeted on both sides of the balance sheet. So so the net revenue is has no tax impact. I had a question about whether the district was able to obtain the grant for a new security system that was discussed last year in our budget committee meetings as something that they would apply for. It was received and used for that purpose, and that was clarified for me. Let's see. Caitlin had a question regarding an increase in salary for principal at MMS. It was over 5 years ahead, increased significantly. The response is that they added a dean of students last year, so that made sense. There was a question posed about the budgeted amount for school district legal fees, why there was such an increase in 23-24, and then another larger request. And the response was that there were legal matters that, that increased, and we anticipate a need for future funds in that line item. Question was posed, why do we have an increase in ESL salary line item, but our ELL aid has not increased? And the response was that the aid for ELL is determined by the population at the end of the school year prior, and we've had a large increase. ELL is English language learners, so I believe that's students who are not native English, right? There was a question about a program called Ames Web Plus, which is a progress monitoring tool for Tier 2 and Tier 3 students. And then we also talked about iReady meeting the requirements for one of the unfunded mandates as a dyslexia screener. And that is all the notes I have because, again, I had a hard stop. So I'm going to toss it over to Caitlin and or Mackenzie to add anything that I missed.
Thank you, Jen. I had a few things as Rachel was unable to attend, she had sent in a few questions that I asked. One of them was around the staff being able to sit on the work committees. Her question in this regard, which was line item 00811200, she had asked with the discussion of the increased stipends in the other budget request next year, has there been discussion of increasing committee work stipends for staff? Is this line continually, will this line continually be level funded, or will staff continue to be incentivized to sit on these committees? The response to this was that they had not talked about increasing this line. In the past, they've had a high number of the work committees that had staff participation and staff engagement. The next question from Rachel was on page 6, line item 008510, the transportation. What is the 5% increase based on? Based on 23-24, if 5% increase was used to budget, the expenditure shows that it was over the budgeted amount. Is 24-25 tracking to be over budget as well? And how is this taken into account when applying the 5% to the 25-26 request? The response to that was that they're not planning to be over budget. They invited more students to the programming over the summer in an effort to close the academic gaps. These are students that either did not meet grade level standards or they failed a course. The school district did provide transportation in order to remove barriers for the students who did attend the summer program. I believe they added 5 buses, and there's our contract. We have 2 more years on that contract. On page 7, line item 398610000, the curriculum development and supplies. Rachel asks, is there a pilot program that is expected, or is this in reference to the new health and potential New Hampshire change in standards that is referenced in the district-wide budget message? There's no definitive pilot program right now. These funds are being requested to be able to vet materials for K-6 health, as well as to ensure we can be responsive to the incoming New Hampshire graduation requirements. On page 8, Jen already talked about that. Her other question was in regard to the legal fees. So as Jen talked about, that's expected to increase, or they increased it to $80K in expectation that they'll need those fees. Her last question was what the teaching assistants at the district level supports. This line, the tech assistant, that captures the salaries of 5 of the computer technicians, the overall systems manager, as well as the network administrator. According to the student information system data, these individuals support over 8,122 devices, 3,625 students, and 874 staff members. And that's all I have, so I'll pass it over to Kate.
All right, I didn't have much more because that was a great summary. I did want to clarify that the unfilled para and custodian positions aren't unfilled, meaning that the child or student that needs the para is not able to have them and that we don't have any custodians in our school. It means that we have to contract that out to somebody else to do it because we're unable to get the employees to be like Merrimack School District employees. So it's not that those are unfilled and they're something that are able to be remained unfilled or moved or anything like that. We did also talk about, we talked a little bit about the free and reduced lunch and how we haven't had as much of an increase in our population that is utilizing the free and reduced lunch, though we do have an increase in our community that is either homeless or that might need some extra services. We haven't seen the free and reduced lunch increase as much. So that's something for us to be able to find another way to communicate that more to the people that can capitalize on that, because it does help us with our, not just only them, obviously it helps them too, but it does account for our differentiated aid, and it's in our SWEPT too, so it counts twice. So it's really important note I just wanted to make sure that I spoke about. And we also talked a little bit about that we have sorry, I think we covered it all. Just that along with the aid, I had a lot of questions about aid, but that our ELL aid doesn't show for that year, it's for the year prior. So if you have an influx of, say, 40 students while the school year ends and over the summer and in the beginning of the next year, we're going to have an increase and we're going to need to provide those services for those students and be able to have that available even if we don't have that aid to supplement it. So that kind of helped clarify that for me. That's all that I had for now. Thank you.
Does the committee have any questions for the district-wide representatives? Brian?
I'm not sure if this is a special
Is your mic on?
Yep, I think it's on. Is it on? I'm not sure if this is like a special edge or a question for you guys, but when people come in from out of the district, like people move to town and they have IEPs or their 504s or they're considered special ed, do we require the paperwork from their previous schools to make sure, or do we just self-assess when they get here? I don't know if that was a question for you guys, or I know we got special services coming up on the 28th.
No, it's a great question. First of all, we always require records, student records from a student's prior district, but we also will oftentimes do our own assessment just to confirm the nature of the services that are required in an IEP. But we do require all the records, whether it's a regular education student or a special education student.
Now seems like a good time to revisit Marie's questions. You had 2 questions. Would you like to restate each of them?
Sure. The object lines 8120 and 8121, do you know what I'm talking about? The professional development substitutes. At each school, they have like there's an 8120 for Thornton's and an 81. Oh, okay. Yeah, this does seem more like a Matt question.
Oh, they're all Matt questions. Come on. See, if you look at your budget by object, you'll see a better picture of that.
Well, by object.
By
okay.
object.
Okay.
Because they're all grouped together. Okay.
Well, I was just wondering why, because 8120 and 8121 seem like they both are associated with substitutes for people that are on professional development.
The
What's the difference?
The 8120s are substitutes for professional development that administrators would like teachers to go to. Okay.
Okay.
It's been budgeted at $128,000 for 6 or 7 years in a row. We haven't spent that much money out of it, but it's still budgeted at $128,000, and there's no increase to the budget. There's a $375 increase in that block of accounts, and that's kind of a blip, to be honest with you. That's a mistake. I'd like to take that out at some point in time. When you go to the, I'll admit, if I make a mistake,
I said,
I'll
now's your
admit it.
chance.
Now's my chance. Make a motion to remove $375 from the budget. But when you go down and you look at the 8121s, those are for 2 days for people to go. We used to have an issue before we had early release and everything like that, where there was a lot of subs being pumped into the building because there was a lot of teachers being pulled out of classrooms. And so we decided to let them have only 2 days. So that's what that is.
I remember that now, yeah.
You remember that now?
I remember that now, yes.
Did we ever do you wrong on that one, or are you okay?
I have no bad memories
Okay,
of that.
good. I don't want to give you any bad memories, Marie. And so, customarily, that's been funded at, let's see, around $31,000. It's basically level funded. One of the other big ones we have is we just have an 8123 account too, which is substitutes. That's for people who are sick, right? And that's budgeted at $297,000. However, in 23-24, we spent $997,000. So when you look at all those sub-accounts and you add up all my appropriations, and then you add up all the expenditures, we're potentially underwater by around $400,000 to $500,000 on the substitute accounts. I'd like to put that together in a spreadsheet and share that with you and show you, everything as opposed to just kind of spitballing it. But we've left that number constant over the years.
I guess my associated question with 8120 and 8121
Yeah.
is why, if it hasn't been spent,
Are we still budgeting for it?
yeah, why are you still budgeting the same
because I
amount?
need that money to cover the $900,000 over expenditure in the other line. What I would like to do, this was done a while back, right? It was split. When I first got here, it was all together. I'd like to take that and do some line item transfers, you know, in discussion with the board to bring it all back together again. So we're just looking at one set of sub-account numbers for support staff and another set of sub-account numbers for teachers. Because it is confusing. But when you look at it in the aggregate, I'll dump it in a spreadsheet, I'll show you the whole thing, and you'll see what it really kind of tallies out to.
No, I kind of get it, that, I mean, I do get it, that it's all subs for professional development, and some of that may get transferred over to cover the subs for people that are ill.
Yeah, and you know, it's just not sickness, it's, let's say you have a teacher
Personal
out.
days,
Personal days,
PTO.
whatever, if there's a teacher not in. Sometimes, you know, you have long-term subs that we have to hire.
Yeah.
If somebody has an illness, or if somebody's having a baby or something like
Yeah.
that, you need somebody. So that's
Yeah.
6, 8 weeks, or how many weeks we give them, right? For
Yeah.
that's what's covered there. And so I think it'd be better and more prudent in the future and easier to
Yeah, it
understand.
would be.
So let's
Yeah.
let's get rid of the disaggregation of those accounts, because it is confusing. I know when we try and place them in payroll, it's kind of like, okay, is this a PD sub? Is this a whatever sub? I just rather have a sub account
Yeah.
and split them between teachers and support staff.
Okay.
So let's see if I can build that for you and have you take a nice look at it. And I'm glad we gave you your 2 days.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did have one other question, and that was about just generally all the school budgets. Their department head curriculum coordinator salaries seem to have higher percentage increases than the increases for the general MTA salary lines. So I was wondering, are the department head stipends or curriculum coordinator stipends in the MTA contract?
No, they're not.
They're
in
not.
The MTA contract.
So it's
no.
a separate,
Yes.
out of the contract pay scale. So, so you just had an increase in that pay scale.
Some of them were woefully underpaid.
Yeah. No, I
And
get that.
the department head's salary has probably been the same if you're a math department head or,
Yeah.
you know, I wish Chisholm was here because he could probably, for like 20 years, it's been the same department head salary, right? So we had to make, I'm looking for.
He's literally good.
Yeah.
So.
No, I get that.
So there comes a
yeah.
point in time where you have to, you know, when you've deferred
Yeah.
incremental increases over the years, you get to a point where people are saying, I've been doing this for 20 years, I'm still making the same amount of money, and the work has increased exponentially. You know, that's one of those things that it's our fault. We should have incrementally given them increases, 2%, 3%, or something like that over the course of the years. But sometimes you just got to make it up all at the same time, kind of like when we passed the support staff contract,
Nessa
which was
contract,
a huge
yeah.
contract, because you had food service people making $12.50 an hour. So you are not going to catch up over the course of 10 years when you're starting at $12.50 an hour, when you can make $15 an hour at Dunkin' Donuts. You know, so that's why it was such a huge contract that this community, thank goodness for them, and the board and the budget committee endorsed and they passed. So sometimes you're going to make giant leaps, and this was a giant leap as far as that's concerned. I was kind of hiding in the back, thinking, you know, you guys didn't even know I was there. And it's
We
like,
saw
wow.
you.
Any other committee questions? Rachel?
Thank you. It's not a question. I just wanted to apologize. One of my questions for the liaison meeting was asking why there was teacher assistants at the district level. Apparently, this is my call that I need reading glasses for tech assistants, and that makes much more
tech.
sense. So thank you.
Yeah, we would try. We were looking through the book. I'm looking for teacher assistants. Where is that? And then it's like the technology people. You know, we have so much gear out there right now that we need a crew. That's right.
Yeah, highly recommend.
See, wherever you work, you should get a vision stipend, right?
Anthony?
I have 2 questions. And also, Justin, could you help me hook up just so I can show? One was, so there's a line item for federal funds.
Oh.
Yes.
In the cost accounts? Oh, I missed it. I'm sorry. Can
Yeah,
you repeat that one for
$1.5
me?
million. See, that's a good question, and I'm glad you're bringing that up, because we have to show that in the bottom line of the total warrant, the total budget warrant article. Is he hooked up?
You can go to the table if you need to plug in. I don't
Oh,
have
the
that cable.
HDMI isn't here?
It's-
Okay.
I mean, it's there on the back of the.
But it's $1.5 million. It's in there, and that covers IDEA. That covers Title I. That covers Title II, Title III, one of Amy's favorite grants, Title IV. It covers everything that we get from the federal government. So on one side, we put $1.5 million as an appropriation because we have to show gross budgeting. RSA 32, the Municipal Budget Act, you have to have gross budgeting. And on the revenue side, you will see that exact same 1.5 million. So there's no impact to taxes. It's kind of like food service. Let's say food service is $1.5 million, same amount. I have to show the food service on both sides of the equation. Have to show it as an appropriation because we capture it as an appropriation because that's how the DOE tracks things. You can't show your budget net. Years ago, districts used to play the game where they used to just take the food service revenue, net it out against whatever they had, and not show it as an appropriation. And it made their budget look lower. And so, years ago, it was changed.
Okay.
Ah. You plugging it in over there? Oh, that's cool. I can go sit in the back again. It's fine with me.
Okay, Matt.
Okay.
This is good. Awesome, thank you. So the MESA contract came up, and this was shared. Were you actually here the whole time?
Yeah.
You really were?
Yeah.
Nice.
He was literally hiding.
Awesome.
I was hiding.
Well done, sir.
Absolutely.
Ninja. All right. So I just wanted to point oh, that's not my mouse anymore. Point
No,
something out that I think I observed here that might be really important, and so I just wanted to bring it to your attention. So just looking at this calculation of the default budget.
Yeah.
Per RSA, it says, of course, at the end, shall remove one-time expenditures contained in the previous year's operating budget.
Yep.
And when I saw this, I could see that right here, so there's the roof as
Yeah.
an article, and it gets backed out right here.
Yeah, that's a special warrant article.
Yep. And then, but what struck me about it is the entire rest of the operating budget stayed intact. And I know that there's a lot of one-time expenditures contained in that 91 million that doesn't get subtracted out down here. So like just as examples, just real quick. So we know that, for example, like when there are new texts that are bought or curriculums that are bought or one-time investments in technology infrastructure, these are one-time expenditures in the...
Not likely to recur
Exactly.
in future budgets.
You got it.
And so what do we do as a school district? We buy textbooks. We buy technology. If I had a fire truck in that budget, we don't normally buy those. So I would take that out.
Well,
but because it's a textbook, it's a normal operating expenditure. So is technology, it doesn't matter the amount or anything like that. It matters what the purpose is. You think of it as a different way. I think of it as another
Sure.
way.
Well, looking at so this is the text of the
Yep.
RSA.
I'm
and
very
it
familiar with that.
Explicitly says one-time expenditures. It defines them as appropriations not likely to recur in the
succeeding budgets,
the
yes.
succeeding budget.
Okay.
Which means year over year. So, like, as an example, the social science text, which is the Open SciEd purchase of the $100,000 right here, clearly, like, this is an anomalous spend, and you're going back down to not asking for a lot. So this is an example, perhaps, of a one-time expenditure. It was a capital investment that is not intended to be revisited in the succeeding budget. And so my concern, I guess I just want us to take a fresh look at what one-time expenditures are in the operating budget year over year that perhaps are not getting earmarked for removal per the text of the RSA.
Yeah, okay. I understand what you're saying.
Peace.
And like I said, even though it was the beginning of a new adoption, once the budget is passed, let's say we have another adoption, or let's say we decide to adopt a different kind of text. Let's say it's not science. Let's say it's biology. I mean, a text is a text is a text, regardless of what it is. But I understand what you're saying in that item could be construed as a one-time purchase not likely to recur in succeeding budgets.
In the succeeding budget, yes, it's the
I
exact
can understand
text.
your rationale for that.
So, like, just a quick read through end to end, default budget means the amount of the same appropriations as contained in the operating budget authorized for the previous year, reduced and increased as it may be by debt service, contracts, obligations, but then this is that one key, reduced by one-time expenditures contained in the operating budget. It looks at a glance like $0 are coming out in one-time expenditures.
That is correct.
Are coming out.
I didn't take any textbooks that were purchased in the 24-25 budget out of the 25-26 default budget.
Matt, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Have you, in the past, how many years you've been doing this, have you ever taken out the programs, like when we've bought other reading things?
No.
Okay,
I
so that's
never
been
have because-
it's always been in there, right?
Well,
So we
it
should.
says in, it doesn't say in the next year's budget.
Well,
Correct. No, I'm just saying it's not like
Other
this is an
No, it
added
says
one.
in
This is
the
the same as what
succeeding
we've
budget.
done
That's-
beforehand.
No, there's no S at the end.
There, you're right.
It's
There-
the
yeah,
succeeding
okay. In
budget.
the succeeding
So
budget.
it's literally year to year. And so the concern here is just that I believe there's a chance that there's the accrual
I have a point of order.
of one-time expenditures that is
Point of
per
order, please.
RSA not supposed to be happening.
Chuck, what is your point of order?
Well, number one, this discussion is getting out of control from the Budget Committee members themselves. Number
I
one.
disagree, but go
Well,
ahead.
This is my point of order, not yours.
Carry on.
I beg your pardon? Do you not know what a public meeting is and what your place is in it? Does this committee? Does this committee know?
Excuse me, we will have order in this meeting, gentlemen.
Yes, I want order in this meeting. That's what I'm asking for. That's my point of order.
Chuck,
The
continue.
Budget Committee has no legislative authority over the default budget. We are wasting our time going down a rat hole, which is quite frankly, a contentious matter for this committee to begin with. We are suffering mightily from continuing to overreach our authority and our mandate. I want more control over this committee discussing the business of this committee.
Thank you for your point of order, Chuck. This committee's been charged with to put forth a budget number, a bottom line budget number to the voters to vote on in April. And this committee should be looking at all line items in the budget with transparency to determine what is a prudent budget to put forth. No decisions have been made today.
And that has nothing to do with the lack of our authority to create a default budget.
So, Chuck,
our administration
No one is suggesting that we
our
create a default
administration-
budget.
Our administration is being challenged about the appropriate nature of their actions in creating a default budget. And this is not the first moment. This is an ongoing probing in an area that is not part of our legislative mandate. And I find it offensive and inappropriate.
I disagree. Caitlin?
Chuck, I was trying to get to the point that if we've always had it in there in the default whenever we've purchased things, it's not like this was something that we did out of the ordinary. It's a typical that
See, I look at
this
it
is-
as just. And
I think it's
I
part of- it
respect
should be
Tony
part of the
coming up here
default.
And have a conversation
I
with
was
me.
agreeing with you.
And I look at it as a textbook, and I don't look at it. There's 800 lines here, and I look at it as a textbook, and it's likely to reoccur in budgets, but perhaps not the initial capital outlay. However, the default budget is the purview of the school board, and the school board only. School board and I can have a conversation about this. This number, when it goes to the deliberative session, cannot be amended at all, and that is in the law also.
Yeah, peace. And the reason that I bring it forward is precisely because I know it is under your purview. And just reviewing this in the exact text, I made this observation, and I in no way suspected, any kind of special, one-off bad faith action, but I wondered if perhaps this just hasn't actually been treated through all of those years according to the actual text, which appears, when you read it, to be talking year over year, so that each year, when you budget for new one-time expenditures, like, for example, our capital investments in technology, intentionally, putting line items into the budget or increasing line items for that, understood, got it, but when those go away, my reading of that yellow text is that next year you back that back out. And so please do revisit that just to be sure that we're not, accruing year over year additional money in the budgets that by RSA is not supposed to be there. And
Yeah,
that's all.
and I want to assure you, there's no evil intent here.
Oh,
absolutely
absolutely.
not. And that's one thing that we can definitely take a look at.
Yeah.
But when I'm thinking textbooks, I'm thinking we're going to be buying textbooks from now until we're not on this earth. And so that's the way I kind of look at it.
Mhm.
Even though there could be a one-time
Yep.
charge in that. And I guess it's all dependent upon if we were to have another one-time charge of a different type of textbook that would offset the one-time charge here, or is it that fine a distinction?
Yep, looking at it, I would say, though, like that column of texts there is clearly anomalous and clearly not intended for use in the subsequent year. So those represent line items that perhaps would get backed out in alignment with the RSA. And then if there were other areas where you did want to budget for it, I think we would see that in the budget proposal. So again, I just wanted to share that
Okay.
observation so that you could take point and
Sure.
do what you feel is appropriate. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
we have 2 questions from the committee. Ken?
Just because it was brought up, the curriculum committee actually about a month ago sat down and did a full audit of the technology and the programs that we're using and eliminated the ones that we don't use anymore. So those are no longer reflected.
Thank you. Rachel?
Thank you. I was just going to bring up the point of, while I appreciate what you're bringing up, again, to me, I have not seen the PowerPoint that you were just presenting. It's really hard to watch you bounce around. And especially when you're trying to talk about language of the law, I feel like that also, it's not within our purview, right? That is a legal read to me in terms of, you know, what those words mean. And I just want to be able to stick to, you know, finishing up our district-wide discussion of things that we have purview over. And I totally understand what you're doing, and thank you for bringing it up, but I definitely just want to get back on track.
But there's two reasons why it does pertain directly to our work here. One is that the default budget amount and the other budget amount are tethered together by law by a percentage. So what one is, the other has to be within 10% of it. So, yeah, isn't it that if you were to try to raise taxes, I guess, more than 10% year over year?
Well, there's the 10% rule at the deliberative session. No one can make a motion at the deliberative session to increase the proposed operating budget more than 10%, and then you net out debt service and everything like that, and then there's a whole form that's, you know, it's probably still online from last year, but the 10% rule, it has to do with the appropriations. Doesn't have anything to do with the fall.
And the second reason that this could be really impactful is because if it is true that this has been a long time oversight, and over the course of years, millions of dollars of not RSA compliant budget has been accruing, like if that were to change, like the calculation for what should it look like going forward, that could have a significant impact on all of these conversations. So I wanted to just share it now so that we have the time to investigate and see what's going on.
So one of my questions that I've had for some time is around surplus. And I was actually going to ask you to speak to surplus at some point, not necessarily tonight, but that comment has me thinking potentially, you know, because I'm thinking, why have we built up a surplus over time? Perhaps.
We give it back to reduce taxes. We had a $3.6 million surplus.
That's another thing I'd love for you to explain sometime publicly,
we had an $8 million surplus during COVID. We gave it back to reduce taxes.
I've never seen my taxes go down, ever.
I can show you the tax rate papers that we gave back $3.6 million to reduce the school portion of the tax rate.
I believe you wholeheartedly. I'm just saying, from a person paying taxes for 26 years, I've never seen my taxes go back down.
I'm a taxpayer too, and I agree with you.
I'm going to take Marie's question, and I have a quick comment about that. Go ahead.
I did have a question about that. I was going to wait until our subsequent work session, but again, as a first-year person on the committee, I wonder if either tonight or sometime in the future you could maybe present to us a pathway that surplus goes through to reduce the taxes. Like, I believe that it does. I just wonder, what's the mechanism by which that happens? And maybe you could just make a handout for us for our next meeting or something?
Yeah,
Can you go online and take a look at the budget and revenue surplus? Is it in your book? Take a look at that right now. Budget and revenue summary.
This right here, it says where our unassigned reduced taxes, we give
budget and revenue summary.
667 right here.
Yeah.
Funded balance. That's what he's giving us. So
You see all those revenues?
what he's
You
talking
see the last revenue there? It says $3,667,207. That is gets added back as a revenue to reduce the school portion of your tax rate, even though through circumstances your budget goes up.
Yeah.
That's where that's where it is right there.
So this might be, you know, again, don't want to put you on the spot. This might be something that would be useful for you to present to the committee at one of our upcoming meetings, present it publicly so that, our public residents understand, because I think this is just a really gray area that we hear a lot. It reduces your taxes, but I think people don't feel like it does. And so maybe we just need some clarity and some transparency on that.
Does the town give back money to reduce your taxes?
I don't know. Do they?
Yes, they do.
So, being that it was my question, can I just say?
Go ahead.
I'm very satisfied with your explanation. I will look at that budget and revenue survey. I'm sure I'll see it, and it makes total sense to me now.
Yeah, this column that you're looking
just-
at for 24,
Yeah.
25 foots totally with the tax rate papers.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. And yeah, the town of Merrimack gives money back to reduce taxes. They gave $895,000 last year. They have a surplus of $8 million.
I believe you. All right. Any other questions for our guests? Yes?
Since you were saying how much you love to realign all these lines, I was just wondering, is it even possible for the paras salaries that are not covered by, that aren't salary, so para positions that we don't get covered by employees, for them to be able to be like a line that says paras that are like contracted, to be able to differentiate?
I have to keep the number of paras that we have in the operating budget under the para
You
salary
can't make like a
lines.
sub thingy under there?
They have to
Is
stay
that a
in the
thing?
budget.
No, I meant
If
in the
they-
budget. I just meant like so that you can see it underneath it versus going to like the special ed IEP assistant contract.
I can't take the
line.
money that's for the salary for paras and shove it into contracted services
No, I
in a
don't mean
like
that. I
amount,
just meant
because
to
that's
show
gonna
it.
be reducing the number of paras. And if I do that, I am gonna be in a heap of trouble with NEA New
Definitely
Hampshire.
not what I want to do. I just wanted to be able to show that the positions are being covered by, that they are in fact being filled as positions, and that we're just hiring contractors, and that those positions are filled,
That
is
could
what
be,
I
that
was
could be
trying to
a
look
note
for.
or something like that, but I can't move the money.
Well, I didn't mean
because
the
that-
money, I meant
that
the
would be-
line.
That would be a violation of fair labor practice, and we would be in. You want to talk about legal line? Give me an extra
No,
$100,000.
Not
Matt-
at all. Not,
Matt, do you
not
want-
at all.
Can I
Yeah.
think I might
Yep.
know what you're trying to say. I think you're trying to say capture the expenditure on a different line item that's maybe named something different.
Yeah, that's not just under the.
So you're not moving budget.
Yeah, I didn't want to move any money or take away any money. I just meant so that you could see it, because when you're in the budget book and it shows that you don't have all of those positions filled, the perception could be, oh, look, we didn't need all that money for the paras, but we did. We just couldn't. We didn't have Merrimack employees that covered them. We had to hire contractors.
You know, we
and that's
can give
under-
you an accounting of those parapositions that are in-house and those that are contracted. We have that data. We don't have that listed in the budget, but we can provide that to you.
Yeah, because we had the same kind of discussion, I think, about the maintenance positions.
Yeah, 'cause
And
we
there
don't
was
have a
like
lot of
another
custodians,
another
right.
500,000 in contracted services that made up for that. So that, yeah.
But that's temporary. Hopefully next year we'll be able to fill all
Hopefully,
those
yeah.
positions. I mean, it's
Hopefully.
been a couple of years. Yeah.
To address your question, I totally understand the first year I was on the budget committee. Two things. I do think we can put it in the paragraph that's, in the budget books, in the paragraph where it talks about we can put the unfilled positions, and I think that would be wise. But just the way the numbers are, there's actually an entire system for what those codes are. We don't randomly pick those codes that are there. There's a whole, I have a whole book this thick. So there's no code for unfilled paras. So we can't make that I know I'm not even talking about the money, we can't make that a line item in the budget, but it could be put in the description in that section, or at the beginning of, say, the student services budget in the narrative, but it can't be a line item because of the coding. That's what I was trying to say.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted the perception to be shown that they are in fact being filled,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
that
that's a
we're
good
not
point.
just not getting those. Thank you for help with that.
Any other committee questions?
Just a
Could I-
really quick
could I-
one.
Marie?
What are advise and confer staff?
Principals, assistant principals.
Okay.
People right here.
Building level administration.
You're
Yes.
you're looking
Gotcha.
at them right
Yes.
here.
That's it. Could I just take the opportunity, Jen, to thank all of you for the amount of work that you put into this, and to thank our administrators, because there's been a lot of work put into this. Just listening to all the questions, all the comments, that you've developed a very solid insight in terms of what's going on with the respective schools or grade levels that you interviewed, and can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And I would say the same thing to our administrative team.
Yeah. And I really don't mind your comments. I don't mind your criticism. I take that as anything that's said here is worth consideration, and I look forward to it. And, you know, we all learn from one another. And we're all here to do what's best for Merrimack and Merrimack School District and the town of Merrimack. I think we all share a common goal. So, thank you, all of you.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay, we are coming up on 9:43, so we will not be having a separate work session. I was hoping this season we would get like some of this and some of that done every meeting, but c'est la vie, we shall move on. I do want to say two things, though. Please, committee members, based on the information that you've been provided so far, be thinking of what components of each of these department budgets that you would like to discuss when we do get to our February 4th work session. And for all of the public, thank you for coming tonight. You really sat through a lot of weeds here tonight. We really dug into a lot of things, and we will continue to do that at future meetings. So we definitely welcome you to come, give public comment, be a part of the process. We love the opportunity to provide the public with more information about the school budget and have transparency around it. I think it's fantastic. We are going to get into the weeds a lot as we go forward in our meetings. So I will not be offended if you come for public comment and then you leave when we get in the weeds. I think some people already did tonight. So that is all for that comment. I have one more general comment, which is I think that one of the things one of the reflections that I take from tonight is that we need to find some sort of balance. We have part of the community that feels one way and part of the community that feels another way about just taxes and spending, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, like Matt said, we all have basically the best intentions and we're all on the same page about what we want to accomplish. We just have to figure out how to get to a place where everybody's comfortable with what the end result is. And so as this committee digs in and we ask questions, I appreciate Bill and Matt and Amy that you all are welcoming our questions and allowing us the opportunity to dig a little bit and not taking offense to us being able to do that. I think this is probably, I only had one other experience last year on the budget committee, but we did not really get into discussion of numbers and look at numbers the way that we have this year. And I think it's been very valuable, not only for us as committee members, but for the community to start seeing those numbers and putting some understanding behind kind of that big 93 or 95 or $97 million number that they are presented with when they get to the voting booth. And if there's an opportunity to present them with something different or a different choice, I think this committee should consider that as well. We are elected individuals, and as you can see, we're trying to do the best for everyone, be prudent and really do our due diligence here. So just, again, want to just say thank you for being willing to take this journey with us. Rachel, did you have a comment?
Yes, I would just like to address last year when you said that we didn't get into the weeds. I think very much we got into the weeds last year. So I just wanted to put that out there that we were very much in the weeds last year. So
That
thank
one
you.
5-hour meeting that I have
Yes.
conveniently forgotten.
Yes, we were very
Yes.
much in the weeds. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Okay, then move on to the next. The next thing is just to announce our next meeting date, which will be January 28th. Same location. Same location. Anyone can make a motion if they like. Go ahead, Caitlin. It's your idea.
Can I make a motion to do it at 6 instead of 7 p.m.?
We have to do a roll call vote. Yeah. Caitlin made the motion. Rachel seconded. Pat will read the names and ask for your vote.
Well, let's start with Gina.
Gina, you still with us?
I'm still here.
Would you like to meet at 6 p.m. on the 28th? Or 7?
Oh, sorry, 6. I said, yeah, I would like to meet at 6.
It's the department heads. Yep.
Rachel.
Yes.
Ken.
Abstain because I won't be here.
Caitlin.
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Shannon. Yes. Brian.
Yes.
Marie. Yes. Mackenzie.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
That's unanimous with one
Yay.
abstention.
All right, so
And
our
look,
next
they're
meeting
all-
will be on Tuesday, January 28th at 6 p.m., not 7 p.m. And I will open one more note. Thank you to all the administrators who came and stayed and allowed us to pepper you with questions. We very much appreciate you staying and giving us your time. Thank you. I would like to open the floor for public participation. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, thank you. Heather Robitaille, 45 Springfield Circle. First, I'd like to thank all the members of the Budget Committee for your service to our town and the time I know it takes to do a thorough review of our district's budget. I'd like to also express my heartfelt appreciation to our school board members, administrators, and staff who joined us here tonight, and for all that they do. My daughter's in her first year at JMU's, and she's growing and thriving under the leadership of Dr. Rowe and Mrs. Fowler, as well as her incredible homeroom teacher, Jennifer Monroe, and many other staff members that are helping with both the day-to-day as well as extracurriculars like the snow sports program, which she loves. Thank you. I'm also excited to hear about the plans our district has to support our students and help them succeed, and hear about the expansion of the lacrosse program at the middle school. My daughter's part of the terrific and growing MYA lacrosse rec team that we have here, and I can vouch for how expensive goalie equipment is. Also, the community response and the impact of the unified sports teams has been really heartwarming, and it's a testament to just how incredible our Merrimack community truly is, and how critical it is to provide truly inclusive opportunities for all students. I was at the State House today to show support for special education funding at the state level. And even though funding for students with disabilities is included as part of the state of New Hampshire's adequate education funding formula, only 17.47%, which is 1% less than the previous year, of the actual costs are covered by our state and federal governments. This results in the bulk of those services costs, just like other public education costs, downshifting onto the backs of our local taxpayers here. Can't flip my page. There we go. The New Hampshire Department of Education is proposing massive cuts to the already meager funding that they provide. However, our district will still be responsible and required to pay for those supported services, which are critical for all students to thrive. These proposed cuts would result in an increase in our property taxes, even if our district budget remained flat year over year. You will still pay more. This is coming from the state. Do I believe there's a magic pot of money out there? No, but it'd be nice. But there is a commission report that's sitting in Concord that finds under a weighted formula, meaning communities paying proportionate amount of their property taxes, more than 70% of towns in New Hampshire could see a reduction in property taxes. Merrimack, last I checked, would receive millions back under a model like that. It would provide relief to our residents. We do not need to stay 50th with public education funding in the country. The cuts that were casually tossed out during last week's meeting to cut support for funding for our staff, like our educators and our support staff, those are staff that help our students thrive. These cuts would strain our already stretched staff and have negative impacts on staff and students district-wide. I believe that the reason the default budget and proposed budget are so close this year is a direct result of our district staff and administration recognizing the strain and concern voiced by Merrimack residents last week and by a few of those here tonight. Even if this committee did decide not to fund a line item, you do not have the power to enforce that policy. As our school board chair, Lori Peters, so eloquently put, that responsibility lies with our school board and with our administrators. So in closing, I hear the concerns being voiced by our community, and I believe we all truly care about our children, their future, and our community. New Hampshire can do better and needs to do better. For anyone who came out tonight or is watching at home and shares the concerns surrounding public education, funding, and rising property taxes, please reach out to our state legislators. Call, email, show up in Concord if you're able to. I'll be there Thursday to speak against a bill that would further erode funding for public education, and put more of a strain on our property tax owners. There is a correct way to do this. We are in this together. We just need to hold our state legislators accountable and be prudent as a local governing body. Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Donna LaRue, 5 Pondview Drive, and I just have a couple of brief comments. I am the proud parent of 2 adult young men who are incredibly successful going through the Merrimack School District and did not have to, at the time of their public education, deal with the level of scrutiny that the public schools are needing to deal with at this point. As the Budget Committee, I thank you very much for looking in the weeds and finding 12 to 25 or 200 line items that you question and get answers for. And I thank you as a school district for not seeing textbooks as a one-time expense on a default budget. Thank you very much. I implore you as a Budget Committee, as you would go to a mechanic to get your car fixed, listen to the experts. None of these people have vacation homes in Europe. None of these people are buying boats. These people are going to their staff meetings this week, and I hope telling them how grateful Merrimack parents are for the waters and the snacks and the love and the gifts that you give. They give all those staff, my kids. And for all of us that have kids, thank you. We couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it without you. It takes a village, and I appreciate you all very much. Thank you.
Lori Peters, 7 Newton, Chair of the School Board. I just wanted to answer 2 questions that the committee had. Marie, you asked about the stipends and are they in the MTA contract? They are not listed on the master agreement on the website. However, For the school board, I was the chief negotiator along with Lori Rothaus. They are negotiated items in that collective bargaining negotiation. And so that was an item that we did go through, but they are not listed on the website. But yes, agreeing with what Matt said, seeing how long those stipends had lasted at those levels, it was clear that they needed to be changed, and that was part of that negotiation. Secondly, regarding the default budget, the DRA and the auditors who come in every year look at how we calculate that. They look at the line items, they look at what is subtracted out and what is put in. They would nail us very quickly if we overlooked or had just ignored one-time items that were being put in year over year on that. That is part of that examination that they do on our default budget. The last thing I'd like to say is we've talked a lot about contacting our state legislatures. I want to encourage people to contact our federal legislators. The federal government, when it passed the IDEA Act, committed to pay 40% of special education funding. The federal government has never met that commitment. The most they have ever given to the states for special education is 10%. We all know, we can all sit here and probably think of items in our federal budget that could go to meeting that commitment. Given that we know more about disabilities and learning disabilities, cognitive disabilities, emotional disabilities than we ever have in the past, yes, we have rising special education costs. We also know how COVID has impacted us. Every district in the state has increased between 3 and 5% their special education population since 2020. We need our federal government to step up and meet the commitment that is written into the law, because that part of our budget cannot be reduced. It cannot, by law, be reduced. And we need the federal government to step up and do their part.
Hi, Barbara McCormick again, 43 Island Drive. I was hoping that you heard my comments and that you were listening, not just hearing what I was saying. The property tax is affecting most of the residents of our town. I was just curious about commercial property. I went online to look to see how much the commercial property, like Budweiser, BAE, Fidelity Investments, how much are they contributing to the school budget? It seems to me that they're getting tax breaks where senior citizens aren't. Yes, I do realize that there's a fund that you can file for elderly exception. It's just ridiculous. I've worked 50 years, not in this town, but I built up my 401k so I could enjoy my retirement, and I just can't do that. So thank you for your time. Thank you for all your hard work that you've done, and I know it's a tremendous thing that you have to listen to all these comments every week. So best wishes.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Are there any committee comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Mackenzie has motioned. I heard Rachel second. All in favor?
Yes.
I'm just declaring.
That was a fun day.
I think it was unanimous anyway.